Let's call the school committee meeting for May 9th to order. We'll go through the agenda, and then we're going to make a few slight adjustments to the order of the agenda so we can reflect those that are in attendance with us this evening.
I want to go
Wow,
home and
hot
watch the Celtics game.
It doesn't count you, Chuck. You have to be here the whole meeting. So we have, the order of the agenda as it is call to order, which we're doing now, public comment, consent agenda, which is rather long today, reports, and then we'll have old business, which includes a school choice grade and school open seat projection from Ms. Baton, the literacy update, pre-RAC meeting from Dr. Hardy and various different other presenters out there that we're welcome to have. Thank you for coming. We then have the district improvement plan update, the superintendent evaluation process, progress, and data. And then we move on to new business, which will include policy JICH and procedure JICH, update, review, and approval. And finally, at least on the agenda, is the school committee letter to support a $25K earmark for the robotics program. Now, order of operations wise, we're going to do this in a little bit different order, presuming the committee agrees to that. One, to reflect the teachers that are here, we're going to go ahead and move the literacy update to be the number one item on the agenda for tonight. And so we'll do that. And then second, after that, we'll move the 25K earmark up immediately following that portion of the presentation. We have a few members, the president of the robotics team, I believe, is here, and the parent advisor as well to support that as well. So with that said, Sean, let's start with our first motion.
I move to take out of order item D2, literacy update pre-RAC meeting.
We have a second. Seconded by Carla. All in favor? And it passes 6-0. All right. Dr. Hardy, do you want to kick us off? Or
I'd love to. Can we get the presentation?
AJ, do we have a presentation up? Get our projector on. There we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be presenting information to you this evening about the progress of the literacy leadership team. And I have some very special guests here to help me this evening. Quite a few members of our literacy leadership team are here as well. So I'm going to invite them up. I'd actually like them to introduce themselves before we launch in, just so you know kind of who is here. It's not the entire team, but you can see from the numbers here just the commitment of this group of teachers. That they all would come tonight and want to share with you about the program that we are recommending for adoption. So come on up, everyone. Just introduce yourself, your school, and your grade.
Okay, I'm Carrie DiNapoli. I teach at Wood End, grade 4.
Tanya McGuire, 5th grade at Killam.
Hi, Jessica Hester, 3rd grade at Wood End.
Good evening, Erica Bourne, full-day kindergarten teacher at Killam.
Hello, I'm Carrie Mullen. I'm one of the special education teachers within the LEAD program at Joshua Eaton.
Hi, I'm Kelly McQuillan, 1st grade teacher at Joshua Eaton.
Hi, I'm Allison Ockerbloom, 2nd grade teacher at Barrows.
Hello, I'm Carrie Ann Zarico. I teach special education at Birch Meadow.
Hello, Renee Lamaro, special education literacy coach.
Beth Levitt, principal at Barrows.
Thank you for having us. Joanne King, principal of Wood End.
Great. Thank you so much for all of you coming.
You all know me, Jen Stiles.
I just do want to pause before we jump in, just to say we have a huge debt of gratitude to this group of teachers and the other teachers that aren't with us tonight. As you saw at my last presentation at school committee, all the exploration event activities that we undertook, most of those happened outside the school day. So for teachers that are already really busy within their school day and putting in quite an amount of effort to go above and beyond to do this work for our students and for our district, we're really indebted to them for their time, their thoughtfulness, and their expertise. So, awesome. All right. We wanted to start tonight just by kind of reminding viewers at home and the committee as to our context and why we are moving ahead at this point with recommending a new literacy adoption for next year. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Milichewski to set that context for us.
Great, thank you. And again, thank you to all the LLT members for being here tonight. So I shared a little bit a few meetings ago about the context and the why behind the work that the LLT is leading right now. And it starts with our goal, our goal being that all students are going to be grade level readers. And I think that's something that everyone in the community, students, staff, families can all get behind. And we shared that there's some things this year in terms of the context that we thought were important that elevated literacy to be one of our priorities and areas of focus. The first thing is we believe that there is a new understanding of literacy instructional practices. We're not saying that there's new research necessarily. There's research that we think now has led to a new understanding for many of us, myself included, over the past several years around brain research, how students learn, research around how students learn how to read, and therefore we need to make sure that our literacy practices, curriculum align to what research and best practice is showing. We also know that our core curriculum was reviewed by Ed Reports, units of study, which ultimately, for those who have read the report, have said that, in Ed Reports, that the curriculum that we're using is not adequate for our students, in particular our most vulnerable students and our highest need students. DESE has also shared a similar view in terms of what they believe that districts need to do, and that's making sure that our curriculum and resources align to what research and best practice is showing. And then also, in starting this year, we've had a lot of conversations with teachers, particularly through our entry process, that shared that just the demand on teachers in terms of the planning process is really cumbersome and not necessarily efficient, particularly where teachers are having to pull from multiple resources in multiple places to be able to find resources, materials, lessons to get in front of our students. So hearing all of those pieces, we think, and knowing all those pieces, for us, elevated literacy to be a priority for us. And we also said that then there was a few things that happened over the past several months that we think elevated the urgency and heightened the urgency for us as a district to move this work forward quicker than maybe we would under normal circumstances. The first one is the pandemic context. Many, many times this year, we've come up to speak about the needs of our students. This particularly aligns with the needs that we're seeing academically for our students. I'm sure all the teachers here in the room would attest. We have classrooms that are filled with students at all different levels academically, and students who are filled at all different reading levels right now. So now, more than ever, we feel like our students are in all different places, and it's really important that we are acting as urgently as possible to make sure that our students have the highest quality curriculum materials in front of them. And then the second piece of context for us that was really important this year was potential access to grant funding to move this work forward. The first is around the Accelerating Literacy Grant, which we received at the end of February, which we spoke about, which we know was $200,000 allocated for us to use towards high quality curriculum materials, which, again, we've spoke with the staff about. It was really difficult for us to look past that $200,000 if it's aligned to work that we already feel like we are going to do, to have that resource and that $200,000 in front of us. Pairing that with potential access to ARPA funding, which we have talked about, which we'll talk about at length tonight, we think presents a really unique opportunity for us to leverage ARPA funding as a way to allow us to move this work forward. And I say this work forward is making sure that our curriculum in front of all of our kids aligns to best practice and research around what high quality curriculum materials and tools look like. So again, in summary, we feel that the need has always been there for us as a district to make sure we have the highest quality materials in place for our teachers and for our students, and we feel like that need has never been higher now as a result of some of these contextual factors. So tonight, Dr. Hardy and the LLT are going to talk through what this looks like for us, the implications, and then we are going to close by speaking a little bit about what's next in terms of ARPA funding and how we're planning moving forward to leverage and ask for some of the ARPA funds to help bring this work into action. So. Delivery?
Might as well. Okay. I wanted to include this slide just to remind you of that the work of curriculum adoption is a process, and a process that needs to be done well if it's really going to have the effect on student learning that we're hoping for. And so we've been in this investigate and select process. That's what you've heard us talk about. So tonight we are here to share with you what we have selected based on the work that this terrific group of teachers has done. So the program that was ranked by far the highest by our LLT members is called ARC Core. ARC is short for American Reading Company. And tonight, we are going to give you, just in broad strokes, some information about this program to help you see some of what we saw in this as potential for really changing the game in Reading Public Schools for literacy instruction. I wanted to just start tonight with a quote that stood out, I think, for all of us when we met with the publisher. This was one of the first things that the publisher shared with us. ARC Core has a clear goal. All children become independent, successful readers, writers, thinkers, and feelers. So this is really about literacy and about the whole child. So some members of the LLT are going to help out with the rest of the presentation. We are not going to be able to fill you in on all of the amazing things in this program. We're just going to give you a little bit of information so you can start to understand it. And then as time goes on, we hope to be able to share a lot more with you. Yep, just hit next.
Thank you. Hi. So just to begin with a really brief overview of the program, it is a comprehensive program that entails all of the reading components that we would like to see in our literacy instruction, beginning with our foundational skills. That's really the phonemic awareness and phonics piece. We were very excited to see the vocabulary and grammar embedded in the instruction. And then, of course, it also has our fluency, reading comprehension, and all of the applications for writing in there too. One of the really wonderful things about this program is that there's so much time for students to practice independently. The lessons are scaffolded so that they get that modeling and guided practice before they go off to try the work in their own texts or in their own writing. And another benefit is that it also targets some of our speaking and listening standards as well.
The program's been rated by EdReports as well as Curate, so I'm going to talk about Curate for a second. Curate stands for Curriculum Rated by Teachers, so the programs have been looked at by teachers all across the state of Massachusetts, which I think is really important because that's who's delivering the instruction. So you can see the full circle stands for meets or most of all evidence indicates high quality. If there's a partial, like where it says accessibility for students, that stands for partially meets expectations. But as you can tell from across all areas that it was rated on, almost every single spot was for most or all evidence indicating high quality. I will also say that this was rated on a 2017 edition, and the one we'd be getting here in Reading is the latest, and they've made already adjustments. So for example, under accessibility, English language learners came up as needing some work, and they've already adjusted that and added in some different pieces to make it better and ramp it up. So that's for this is the K-2, and now we're on 3 to 5. You already moved over. So K-2 had just a small little part for accessibility, and now 3 to 5 shows that it's already all been at the highest possible rating. So this is Curate. Again, it's curriculum rated by teachers.
And I'm going to talk about the EdReports rating. So if you look here, there are the kindergarten through second grade. The second set of slides has the third through fifth grade. And not only did it meet expectations of the scores, they were really at the top of meets expectation for every single range there. So as you're looking at this, it tells you, you know, like building knowledge, for example, was 32 out of 32. So that was very exciting to us. Each of these grade levels actually also has a more in-depth report that was also reviewed and considered, so we were able to look at it by grade level. And as Beth just mentioned, our core really took the feedback and made changes. So some of the content areas around phonology and phonics, they've actually already upgraded any of the issues that were listed in this report, and changes have been made to the curriculum. So we're very, very excited about that.
In terms of looking at how ARC Core aligns with our goals, it really starts again with connecting that piece of readers, or we want readers to be reading at grade level. And so in terms of looking at those foundational skills, the foundational skills are really connected with the text. We're not teaching skills in isolation. Students are also able to work in small groups. That's part of the everyday routines and practices, and that's really allowing teachers to differentiate instruction for where students need some extra work, or they may need to be challenged in different areas of targeted reading skills. Assessment is a huge part of this program, which is amazing in that students are evaluated on a regular basis to really look at those targeted reading areas to see where they're making progress or maybe where they're not, and we need to adjust our practices in that piece.
Another one of our overarching goals was that students are engaged and excited to learn. Our team members that attended a site visit where this curriculum was in use were blown away with the level of engagement. The students were engaged, they were working at their level, getting the interventions that she just spoke about the student progress was being met within the classroom. And we were really taken aback by this rich and complex text. All students are engaging with grade level text, and this curriculum, ARC Core, will bring in so many high level, high engaging text that will connect to all of the modules. And a couple of my team members will talk to you more about what that will look like, but it really connects to our other goal, our third goal of being strong communicators. Everything for reading and writing is connected. It is all embedded, and students are writing multiple times throughout the day. So not only are they writing about their text, but they're also writing genre-specific writing, and they're going back and forth for a purpose throughout their lessons across the entire module.
And just adding that last piece about the speaking and listening and how key that is to literacy, that as humans, we weren't born to read and write, but we were born to listen and to speak. And so to have that embedded in part of the everyday practices in our literacy is really key for our students.
One of the other decisions that we were faced with was how to implement the program, meaning what grade spans to begin with. And so the LLT and then working with our building principals helped to inform the decision. What we've decided is that for the upcoming school year, we'll begin with an implementation in grades 3 through 5. The main reasons for this is we really have seen in grades 3 through 5 that currently there are no foundational skills programs in place. That vocabulary, spelling, grammar, those components that we know are essential to our older students' success, especially in middle school, there's nothing in place right now, so ARC Core would meet that need. We've also seen, when we're looking at our current students and trying to measure the impact of interrupted learning, some of the students we're most concerned about are our current second and third graders, who will be our third and fourth graders next year. If you think about our current second graders, those students missed the end of kindergarten, and their first grade year was a hybrid year, a very unique year, difficult, challenging to be mastering phonological awareness and phonics. And so they're in second grade this year and will be our third graders next year. I will say, too, that there was one other factor that kind of led to not implementing in K-2 next year. We also have a really big and important implementation happening next year. If you may remember, we will be rolling out the second, wave of our illustrative math in K-2. And while we're all here to talk about literacy, we recognize for our students, mathematics instruction is equally important and really an area, as you may remember from our MCAS results, that our students struggled with, that interrupted learning really did impact as well. So we feel good about that decision. We would implement in the 23-24 school year with K-2. And for the upcoming school year, that doesn't mean that literacy, that nothing happens in literacy for K-2. We have plans to continue with the foundational skills, professional learning that started this year, and to continue to support teachers so that they're ready when it comes their turn to adopt the literacy program. With ARC Core, you'll hear some more at the end. Professional development is embedded in their adoption plan. In fact, they will not sell you their materials without the professional development, because the curriculum tool is really only half of the equation. How teachers learn to use it, how they learn to instruct in literacy is equally as important. And so you'll see in our implementation plan that the 2 school years following the adoption by any grade level, we will continue to have professional development from ARC Core in the form of coaches coming into our schools. Also, professional development for our building leaders who will be supporting teachers in their work. By the time we get to the 26-27 school year, that's the first year we'll be kind of in a steady state where the professional development from ARC Core will have ended, and then we, as a district, will pick up from there. We're going to just share with you a little bit of information about the 5 criteria. As you may remember, we created a literacy program exploration tool right at the very start of this process. We used the same tool to rank every single program we looked at after every single event. We gathered close to 80 different points that teachers rated on all 5 criteria after either a site visit, after a meeting with a publisher, after a deep dive into the material, so a variety of sources, but the teachers here in front of you are the ones who created all of these ratings. So tonight, we just want to show you kind of a comparison of where ARC Core, how the teachers rated it based on 2 other programs we looked at, which were Wit and Wisdom, in my view. And then the teachers are going to share a little bit of information under each criteria as to what stood out about ARC Core in our program exploration.
Thank you. So criteria 1 was student engagement and culturally responsive. And as you look at the graph, you'll notice that there are the 3 different bars that represent the 3 different programs: ARC Core, MyView, and Wit and Wisdom. And clearly you can see that ARC Core was rated the top in this criteria. When we think about this program overall, it's so important for students to see themselves in text. So when the publishers became involved in curating their libraries, it was very important that all students were included and that the libraries were as diverse as possible. There's a team at ARC Core that reads every single book that is included in their collections. And when they were finding that there were some student populations that were underrepresented, they actually went ahead and wrote their own books and created and published their own books to include them in the libraries, which we thought was so impressive. We want students to be looking with mirrors and windows as they're reading and making connections with text. So some of the highlights, as some of my colleagues have mentioned before, that high interest, knowledge building, complex grade level text that all students will be interacting and engaging with. There's a digital bookshelf with a wide range of selections that's accessible to students both at school as well as at home. And just a little side note, I was one of the fortunate teachers to go attend the site visit, and as we were circulating through classrooms, we had the opportunity to speak with students, and so we asked him to explain this digital bookshelf. And so the language that he used was really powerful. He said it goes kind of by a color rating, and he said if you're someone who's new to reading, you would be reading at this color, but if you're someone who's been practicing reading for a while, then you would be at this color. And really having that growth mindset about reading and saying, you know, not if you're a struggling reader or if you're someone who's bad at reading, but just having that if you're someone who's been practicing for a while. So we thought that was very, very powerful, just the language that, you know, this first grader was using to talk about reading. Another highlight is authentic, real-world tasks and assignments. For example, in a second grade classroom, one of the products that was on the wall was about one of their nonfiction selections, and it was to share your wow fact. In addition to sharing the wow fact, you also needed to provide a textual quote. A quote from the text is textual evidence, rather, as well as cite the source. This is second grade. This was amazing. And the last is that the program is very differentiated for all of our learners, and there's a variety of instructional components that includes whole group, small group, as well as kind of independent time. So, thank you.
There, as you can see, the second criteria was access for all and equity centered, and this really spoke to me that it had such a high rating by our team of teachers, classroom teachers at 3.9. And as a teacher, there's nothing more important than being able to meet the needs of all of our learners that are in front of us. There's such a wide range of learners in every classroom in the district, And it's been a struggle with the curriculum that we've had to access all of those learners. And I like all of the things that we've noticed in this curriculum that it will enable us to meet the needs of our EL students, of students of all different backgrounds. So what we notice is they allow entry into the whole group lessons by tapping into different types of learning styles. So depending on what a student's strength is, they'll be able to access the grade level reading and writing standards. They also have a nice assessment system, the IRLA, that we can use, and we can also use small group toolkits, which will help us to identify the strengths and needs of each of the students in our classroom, as well as pair them with the targeted instruction that they're going to need to be successful. Thank you.
Another criteria we looked at was content, really deep diving into the content, what was offered, how it was offered. And our core really stood out to us as the top as far as the modalities and the way it was going to work with students through a thematic approach. It really looks at reading and writing to build knowledge in their vocabulary, and it does it so in every lesson, it seamlessly integrates the content with the language arts curriculum. ARC is very rich in social studies and in science, and it allows students to write through different modalities throughout the time, as well as touching upon different areas of writing. So all students start with the Learning Lab, K to 5. From there, it moves into a unit-based thematic approach. For example, in 4th grade, it starts off with animal adaptations. In kindergarten, it's zoology. And so it's very high interest that builds in that content of science, as well as the reading and writing as they go. From there, it goes into other areas. So the first is information. It goes into genre studies. For example, in 4th grade, it looks at American history and historical fiction. From there, it goes into argumentative. And I'm sticking with 4th grade. In 4th grade, it continues on and it looks at the United States. So it's different areas that it hits to have them seamlessly learn through the content and apply their speaking and listening skills with reading and writing as it goes. And that was very intriguing for all of us on the team to really have that content rich, at the same time applying it across all areas with reading and writing and speaking and listening. Thank you.
So I looked at criteria 4, which is the assessment piece, and we were all very impressed with the IRLA. It's called the Independent Reading Level Assessment. And so you can see when we looked at the other programs, this was way above the other two. Some of the things about IRLA, and IRLA stands for Independent Reading Level Assessment. As was mentioned earlier, we are faced with a classroom that has such a wide variety of skills right now, and it's something that we've really not seen before, this wide range. So IRLA can be a game changer for us. It will allow us to target and diagnose specific needs of students. And then the great thing about IRLA is it takes that data and it matches children to text. And whether it be in small group or whether it be independently, what happens is they get to practice at their level, and they practice multiple times. And then the ARC has put together these baskets of books that are specifically linked to the skills that the kids need. So not only are they practicing with me in a small group, then they go off and they practice independently. So there's many opportunities for a child to practice, which is one of the things that was really excited about this assessment piece. Also with the IRLA, every level comes with a toolkit, and it has small group instruction already made for us, which is a huge game changer for a lot of us because we spend many hours trying to put together small group lessons, and it's a great way for us to utilize our support paras that come in. We have lessons ready for them to go. They can take a small group as well, so we can meet the needs of many students at the same time. I think one of the things that was most important about the IRLA is the goal, finding the highest level of independence and proficiency, because that is the only way that we're going to get the kids to progress through the progression. And with the IRLA, one of the things that was exciting for us too is a child does not progress until they meet all of these little, you have like a little checkbox, and then you know they're ready to move on to the next level. I think for us, will also create consistency across the district. So when we're looking at, say, like a yellow reader, we all have the same knowledge of what that reader needs and what the skills are needed to move on to, say, the next level. So I think that one of the most important things as a teacher is being able to accurately assess my students and know exactly where I need to spend my time to move those kids on and inform my instruction.
So as you can see, criteria 5, teacher accessibility, ARC Core came out the highest again compared to the other two. When we think about the program, it will really assist teachers with thoughtful instructional shifts that we need to make based on some of the research about reading in the brain. The program has a focus on power goals and key objectives for students, which will be really helpful in our instruction. ARC has a clear scope and sequence as well as clear lesson objectives. And the skill-based lessons are included in the program, which Carrie was just speaking about, will be really helpful for small group instruction.
So now you heard a lot about the program. In looking at, and the components of the program, to me, the most important piece is professional development. And I think Reading needs to invest as much in its teachers as it does in curriculum. So to say that again, Reading needs to invest as much in its teachers as it does in curriculum. And professional development's key. So in looking at what ARC has to offer, if you look at the first year of implementation, this is just for teachers in grades 3 through 5, you're looking at 10 to 15 days of professional development per school, times 5. Thinking about that, the principals all take part in a leadership series as well. So the principals are embedded in the learning with the teachers, and every school participates. There is no teacher, and believe me, Reading has some of the most gifted teachers, no teacher that's going to learn a new curriculum in 2 days or 3 days. So they get coaching throughout the year in their classrooms, live with real students. In year 2, which would be 3 through 5 would be in their second year, K through 2 would be in the first year. It's 10 days of PD per school. And again, the principals participate in a leadership series. So they're also continuing on in their own professional development to be able to lead the school. In year 3, which is when K-5 has implemented the program for at least 1 year, 3 through 5 is a little bit further ahead, it's 5 to 8 days of PD per school, and another 10 days in the leadership series. And I think that's key. If the principals don't know what's going on with the curriculum, how are they evaluating teachers? And I think that they can't coach them, they can't support them, they can't give them what they need. So I think that the fact that this program offers both teachers and principals is a huge component. Yes, it's expensive. But I'm going to tell you this, and you know I'm leaving so I can say this. This group was tasked by you with finding a better way to improve literacy for our students. You asked them to do this. Sarah Hardy put together this amazing, talented group of people. You don't even have all of them here. And they're coming to you with, this is the best program. Not, this is the second best program, this is the third best program, this is the best program. So your job is to approve the best program that they're coming to you with, and it's ARC. They're telling you, yes, it's going to be expensive, but if you want to invest in our kids, then start now, invest. The cost is a little bit more expensive than other programs, but look what's coming with it. So it's a digital learning license, which means every time the program's updated, the teachers have access to the most updated information. We're not waiting. I'm going to tell you right now, Math in Focus 2012 editions are still in school. It's 2022. So if you're looking at investing in current practice, current professional development, and current support for teachers, ARC does this. And I think that it would behoove us, if we want to focus on what our students need, you need to find the best program. This group found it. You need to implement it.
can't really follow. I'd like to invite Susan Baton up to talk a little bit more detailed about what the costs are, just so that you can have a sense of what this implementation would look like from a budget perspective.
So before you is an outline of the cost of the implementation of the program over the first 4 years. It begins with a cost for grades 3 through 5 of $715, almost $716,000. We do receive $195,000 of grant through DESE, and with some operating budget savings, we were able to bring down the cost of the first year implementation to $433,000. Year 2 continues with the job-embedded PD, digital licensing, and material replenishments. The total cost for year 2 for both grades 3 through 5 and K through 2 is $791,000. Year 3 continues the work of PD, material replacement, and licensing, totals $403,000, almost $404,000. And finally, year 4, which is reaching a steady state phase, totals $371,000. So the total of the 4-year implementation is $2 million. On the next slide, what I'd like to share with you is the approximate investment of a steady state beginning year 5. The ongoing renewal of materials and the steady state digital licensing and other types of material costs will range from $43,000 per year to about $150,000 per year. Some of these costs will shift and wane depending on the reduction to Tier 2 services that might incur due to this implementation of a strong Tier 1 curriculum. Some of the costs may also decrease due to perhaps some redundancy between curriculum district-wide and school-based programs for literacy and what the curriculum offers. So I will pass this on to Sarah. Dr. Hardy.
Thank you, Susan, for that explanation. I wanted to add one other component, which I don't have a slide for, but as you saw, we did consider other literacy programs, and as part of our due diligence, we did look at what the costs of those programs would be. Obviously, ArcCore is unique in that the professional development is embedded. Other programs simply don't offer that. In looking at like a program that we also considered, when we looked at the cost for all of the materials, the digital licenses, the materials we believe we'd have to supplement with in order to get to the level that ArcCore offers, and then to offer the professional development, we ended up at about $2 million. So the price point was very similar if we really want to offer this level of literacy instruction to our students and give this level of support to our teachers. Thinking about next steps, obviously our most immediate next steps is to secure the funding in order to move ahead with this implementation. But then after that, and actually ongoing over the next month or so, this group of teachers is not done. They are going to work on what our launch plan will look like. Because as you know, and I've said to a few folks here, we've just gotten ourselves to the starting gate right now. The work really begins now because the way that you implement a program and monitor that implementation is really the most important thing, whether or not it's going to have the effect that we want, that we desperately need. And so we are entering that launch phase right now. I do think that the other piece before us tonight that I'd love to have Dr. Milichewski share a little bit more about is just kind of how we move forward to secure the funding in order to have this implementation happen.
Thank you. So I think we all know that moving forward, this is about a $2 million lift, which is just outlined by the team. In conversations, those who have been following the RAC meetings, the Reading ARPA Advisory Committee, have known that in the framework that's been proposed by the town manager, that's been discussed through a series of meetings, has been about out of the $7.5 million, about $2 million of that being allocated towards the schools. So you can see the alignment between what's been in those conversations allocated to schools and what's outlined here. We also, so therefore, we think the path forward for us is to present on Wednesday night in front of the RAC committee some part of this presentation, which we can discuss tonight, which part makes most sense. And then also ideally secure the approval and the support of RAC to then move forward in front of Select Board, which is the appropriating authority for the ARPA funds on May 17th. Something, we've had a few questions around sort of why core curriculum when it comes to pandemic-related recovery funds. My belief, and I believe our belief, is that we can put various interventions in place to try to support our students who are struggling, who have various interruptions in their learning from the past several years, and we think that matters. It's hard for us to identify an intervention more significant than something that could impact all of our kids across certain grade level spans, like a Tier 1 curriculum. As we shared, as the teacher shared, we have students who are all over the place in terms of academic needs. Now is the time for us to invest in a strong Tier 1 curriculum to ensure that all of our students have access to the best quality materials. Again, with students all over the place, we think that this is the best sort of investment for us, is to invest in Tier 1, in addition to all those other Tier 2 things that we're doing. Tonight, I appreciate how the team outlined why ArtCore and also the impact that it would have on students. So we look forward to your feedback tonight, and we look forward to talking about how we can move this forward with both the RAC committee and then also Select Board.
Okay, is it time for questions and comments from the committee? Who wants to start? Sean?
So first, I think we should have retiring principals come to every school committee meeting, and that speak truth to power thing is great. I love that. So thank you, Dr. King. You know, in fairness, you would have done it if you weren't retiring too, but you know. So first of all, you know, I don't think we can express enough gratitude for all of you leaning into the amount of effort that went into doing this evaluation in such a short time frame, and you know, with days of notice, piloting new curricula in your classroom and things like that. So huge debt of gratitude for that. I got to see my view in person in Ms. Hester's classroom a few weeks back. I'm personally am pleased that it didn't make its way to the top of the list, but that's neither here nor there. A couple things. One is, I really appreciate, you know, having dug into this one a little bit after learning that this was where you all had gone, a few things that I really appreciated. The comprehensiveness of the curriculum, specifically how it will reduce the burden that we know has been on all of you to supplement, you know, the shortcomings in our current curriculum, I think is really important. It'll also drive a lot of consistency across the district, which is really valuable. And then the other thing is, and you all talked about this, but this notion of that embedded sort of expert PD that will allow us to implement that much faster and more successfully than sort of a train the trainer kind of model might allow, I think is really, really valuable for where we are at this point in time. So I'm really excited to see that in this one. I did have two quick questions. One is, I think the teacher accessibility criteria probably maps to usability, which was the one thing in Ed Reports that wasn't, you know, was good but not great. I'm curious if you all saw anything that, you know, sort of gave you, you know, any indication of why it was sort of good but not great from a usability perspective, and then I'll hold the second question.
I can only speak to what I think
Sure.
that refers to. I think there's so much that is in this program that you have a variety of tools at your fingertips, which for some teachers can be overwhelming. So I think that is where that might come from.
Okay.
But when you look at, if you look at the teacher manual, it's really well written out. There's lots of shout outs that point out the science of reading. So I think that is where that comes from.
Okay, that's great.
Which is a good problem.
Yeah, a good problem. And the intense PD and coaching probably supplements that, right? And then the second one was maybe for Dr. King. You were talking about sort of the principal engagement in PD and that sort of thing. From what you saw, how will it support principals in evaluating and coaching sort of the effectiveness of teachers in delivering the curriculum?
So, as a person who's worn 1,000 hats for 11 years, the thing I'm least connected with right now is curriculum, which shouldn't be the way it is, but that's the way it is. We're operations managers. And I think if you want principals to be effective leaders, they need to be embedded and married to this curriculum just like their teachers are. So it's hard for me to go into a classroom and evaluate a teacher who's implementing a new curriculum that I don't know anything about. I know educational leadership, I know best practice, I know what classrooms should look like in an elementary school, but if I'm not as embedded in this curriculum development as my teachers are, how am I evaluating them? I don't know what their best practice should be because I'm not that connected to the literature and to the text that they're using and to the lessons that they're giving and the way that they're assessing students. And I think every administrator needs to become an educational leader. We need to move away from operations and more into educational leadership.
All right, Carla, what work are we down the line?
Stay right there.
You're sad you brought me here tonight, I know.
Thank you, everybody, for the amount of work you did in the short amount of time that you did it. And everybody seems like they're smiling and they're kind of happy, so it makes me feel even better. So a few of the things that I liked about this program was the mention of the oral and written language, right? Because we know how many people learn so much orally, right, and hearing things. So that I liked about it. If you could give me an idea of the 10 to 15, the PD days, the 10 to 15 in the schools, what that looks like, and then when you talk about the 10 days of the Leadership Learning Series, who else is in that room besides the principals? Because, I think I say,
That's a
okay,
great question.
we're investing this in this, we're investing in the teachers. What happens if a teacher leaves? Who's the person to jump in to help that teacher get up to speed?
So it's a great question you're asking. It's two parts, Carly, and I'm going to have Sarah answer the second half. To go back to Sean's point, Reading's done a lot in the past with developing teacher leaders. And teachers are only as good as the professional development we provide for them or that they seek out themselves. And these people have all sought out professional development on their own, not that Reading's provided it. I think this is different in that you're bringing everybody to the same playing field. So everyone's coming to the same table. They all have the same opportunity to participate in the professional development. What that's going to look like from a bird's eye view, they're going to get a really solid overview of the curriculum. They're going to get a really solid overview about what best instructional practices look like in an elementary classroom around literacy, around all the components of reading. It's also going to give us an opportunity to look at the assessments and progress monitoring of our students. We do a ton of assessments on our students right now. Do we have the time to look at all of the data points to see where our kids are performing well and what we need to put in place? We don't. I wish we did. We would need 28 hours in a day, and all of that would be teaching. I think to look at moving forward, having the instructional leaders, I think it should be everybody. It should be principals, it should be our curriculum coordinators, obviously our assistant superintendents. They have to be involved in Tier 1 because without solid Tier 1 instruction, we're always going to have a gap. If every kid can't access Tier 1 instruction, what's happening in the general education classroom, grade level standards, how are we expecting our kids to meet those? We can't keep pulling kids out and intervening, and I love our tutors, believe me, they have saved us, but they're missing key elements of our general instruction, and I think that's a difference. This brings everybody to the table. To your point about a new teacher is going to come in, and I have to be honest with you, I am a huge advocate of Readers and Writers Workshop. I spent a lot of time at Columbia learning that with my staff. I think having a new teacher come in and learn that is hard. I think having a new teacher come in and learn a core curriculum that every teacher in Reading Public Schools knows is a little bit easier. You have teachers that are in the school that know how to do it. It also gives our middle schools an advantage in that 5 elementary schools feed into 2 middle schools. They're all going to come in with a similar learning experience, not a different experience based on teachers' abilities or based on what teachers have been able to learn on their own. Every teacher is going to be part of professional development, and that's the key.
I think if I could just add one more thing to that, I think it's the ongoing piece that's so
Best step
important.
up to the
Sorry.
microphone.
The ongoing piece is what's really important to me, is that it's going to be going throughout the whole year. So a lot of times when we're learning new curriculum, there's a training, like with, there's a training that happens and then you're off on your own, go for it. With this, there's going to be that ongoing piece of being able to circle back and ask questions, that coaching piece, that I feel that ongoing is going to help it be implemented in such a more overarching way for all of our students. So it's going to keep going rather than that one and done, if that makes any sense.
And I like how the PD takes place in the classroom, in a live classroom, too.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, right? Because,
Absolutely.
and then you can ask questions, you can get that feedback, so you're not sitting like we are in a room full of adults. You're sitting there and you're seeing it with the kiddos, and you're being able to see how that's going to actually impact them going forward. And then you're looking at the data, looking at all those pieces, and going right back in and making it be, used right away, rather than, you have a training in August, and then all of a sudden in January, now what if you've got questions? Well, this will give us that now what, it'll keep it going throughout. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Chuck, make sure the mic goes towards you.
Thank you. It was great. Many of people in this room have heard me say, when I visit a school, I come out with a spring in my step. I can tell you, tonight, it's nothing more satisfying to me to see the boots on the ground empowered to do the research and make a decision and come back with a recommendation. To me, that's what it's all about. It's not top down. It's the people that are doing the work, and I really appreciate that. And so I'll say that. And I just had a question for Susan. Where'd she go? I always roll back to the numbers, as you know. My question, so I understand the 2 million aspect of it, and that's putting the program in place and getting it going. And then you mentioned the sustainability, which I'll call the sustainability piece, which was the 43 to 150,000.
Yes.
Why such a big range for that? That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm for, obviously, for the sustainability. It's sustainability. It's something we'll have to, look at every budget, in the future. But I'm just curious about the range and why it's so broad.
That's such a great question. The $43,000 is focused solely on digital licensing. It's about $8,600 per school. The balance of that range has to do with materials. Every unit, every grade level has a series of print, workbook, toolkits available to them. With every unit, the materials are used, some very frequently, some not so frequently. So what that additional dollar amount is to replace the materials that are used often. Additional dollars for adding additional enrollment and cohorts. This is a higher estimate. We may find when we're ready to reach this ongoing investment that we may not require the amount of materials every year. This, again, is a range, lowest to highest.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
Aaron?
So your enthusiasm tonight is infectious. I already knew some of this information from the administration, but it was much more impactful hearing it from all of you. So I'll reiterate what everyone else said, in that I greatly appreciate your time. I know that you didn't have a lot of it, but you accomplished a ton during that time. So I just have a few comments and a few questions. Some things that stood out for me were that this is all encompassing. I love that it has all your components of your reading and your writing and your assessment. I always say time is money. So not having to go elsewhere for the assessment, elsewhere for the professional development, not having to piecemeal, patch together, but having it all embedded, I think it makes it more worth the price tag. I heard differentiation multiple times, and I think that is something that's so vital to teaching, but so hard to do when you have, as you said, you have this range of learners and skills and abilities. So it sounds like this is a system that will better allow you to differentiate for your students. I loved hearing about the culturally responsive books, equity, mirrors and windows. I just think that's so important for student engagement and student enjoyment in the classroom. I also love the tie into science and social studies. It's something that, personally, I would love to see more reading and writing around science and social studies. So I love that this, again, is embedded in this curriculum, automatically allows you to do that. One question I had, which is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum of what we're focusing on, but when you have a student who is a very advanced reader, will this allow that student to be accessing material at their top level? Because I've sometimes felt or heard that certain things max out, whereas a student may be up here, but the curriculum for the grade maxes out here. I want to make sure that not only are we helping our struggling readers, but that when we have our excelling readers, they are able to soar as well.
One of the amazing things about this program is it really does provide a strong learning environment for the whole range of readers. And the reason it does that, it's really a project-based program, that as students head into the units that were so well described, they're conducting research that aligns with that knowledge that they're building. And so the sky is the limits. The commonality is that students would be examining the same content area and that there might be the same overarching research question. But with any research project you might work on, that question is your starting point, and the text that you're diving into to answer that question can be customized for students. ARC Core does enable us to purchase even a wider range of the toolkits so that we can have small group instruction that is above grade level for students who might be ready to work on some of those embedded skills that are above where a typical student would be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, is it okay to ask another
Yep.
question? So another question I had is, we've sometimes heard feedback that teachers teaching the same grade but across the district don't necessarily have enough time to collaborate. Part of what's exciting about, again, this all-inclusive curriculum is that we know the same material will be happening across the district. Will there be the opportunity for, for example, third grade teachers across the district to be communicating about how it's going? Will there be any, is any of the PD, outside the classroom so that they're having the opportunity to collaborate?
That's a great question. So one of the ways that we can customize the PD, and there are lots of ways, by the way, ARC Core, it really makes it customizable, and we work on the plan together with our building leaders, is that while about 8 of the days will be in person, 4 or 5 will be virtual. And so that gives us the opportunity on those days to have, say, like the whole third grade team participate in a similar training to calibrate, to share practices, and to have the coaches from ARC there to facilitate that. One of the things that's really exciting about the professional development is the opportunity to do that, to set foundational understanding, but then to differentiate for our teachers as well. Just as we realize it's so important for our students, our teachers deserve to have professional learning that caters to where they are in their learning process as well.
Great, thank you.
Sarah?
I think everybody's covered the majority of my questions, but I just wanted to again say thank you. I am beyond thrilled that you're here asking us to help find $2 million in our budget. I don't think there's any one thing we could do that would have such sweeping change for our students and the path forward for their learning. So I'm so excited. The more that I hear about ARC, the more excited I get about it. I was looking at some of the themes and the texts that go along with it over the past couple of days, and I just kept getting more and more excited about it. So I'm really thrilled to see what this looks like next year and the following year as we roll it out to students. One quick question might be for you, Dr. Hardy, or for Susan, in terms of what's included in the purchase price. So I know you mentioned the digital library for students. Does that also, will we have the ability to provide physical book libraries that go with the themes for each of the classrooms?
Yeah, so each classroom is going to receive hundreds of books, up to 700 books, per classroom that come with it. In Unit 1, that reading lab that was mentioned, students are introduced to what's called a wide reading library, and that is available to students over the course of the year. Those are some of the books Susan was mentioning that might have to be replaced over time because they'll become well-loved and read over the course of the year. And then within each of the modules that come after, teachers will bring out 4 more baskets of books that are all related to the content of that unit. And so again, students are being immersed in lots of really high-quality literature, nonfiction as they go. So lots of books in our kids' hands.
Awesome, great, excited to see those come home.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I should add too, I'm sorry, part of this program is that home-to-school connection. So books going from home to school is part of the program. That's another reason they say you will have to replace the books because they aren't going to sit on a bookshelf or sit in a desk. They're going to be in kids' hands and home and in our families' homes. So.
Awesome, thank you.
I guess everybody's covered most of the stuff, but I'll add my thanks as well. I think most people know this is quite a passion of mine as well, and it's great to see all the work and all the time and all the effort that you all have put into this. I don't think thanks is enough, frankly. Joanne, it's not our ability to approve this, but it is our ability to fight for it.
A yes would be
Right?
good.
So you can bet that Sean and I will have our boxing gloves on and we'll be fighting for it. And the rest of the committee, hopefully, it sounds like will be behind us and pushing us forward in that regard. So we will be doing that, I think, unequivocally. Just a couple highlights as I was studying and reading and researching it. I'll say this pretty openly. I was surprised this was the choice, but I'm extremely pleasantly surprised it was the choice. It wasn't one of the ones on my radar when this whole process started. I know, talking with Sarah a little bit, she's like, this was the number one I put on the list for reading and reading when we were doing that. And I'm like, okay, great, I'm glad. Not surprised, but great. And I think it also ties into so many other themes that we had when we had some of those other conversations. Jess, I remember you sitting in the PD conversation with us, and the number one thing you said is coaching for leaders, and the number 2 thing you said was in classroom PD, right? So both of those things are embedded in this program, which is phenomenal, right? I think we're demonstrating that we're learning from our past mistakes with this as well, and that we're buying a program that forces us to put the PD on the table and forces the PD to be at the level and at the need that meets the need for the teachers, for the principals, for the curriculum coaches, for the superintendent and the assistant superintendents. And I think that's phenomenal, right? I'm so excited about that. I see all 5 essential components in it. I see everything in the reading rope in it. It clicks every box, and I'm appreciative of that. In addition to that, I see that it starts to incorporate all of the writing rope, which is an evolving thing as well, in it as it goes through as well. So I am so appreciative of the work that's happening here. Finally, embedded assessment, right? You can have the best tools, but if you can't assess about how your students are growing, and you can't then reorient and readjust to hit those needs, it can be worthless, but now we have that embedded assessment as well. So I'm looking forward to that rollout, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of that PD about the assessment as well. How do I use that assessment? How do I retailor what I'm doing to hit this student's need or that student's need? And seeing IRLA, I think is how you pronounced it, IRLA integrated into it, I'm excited to see that. I don't think it's an all-encompassing assessment from what I understand. We'll still have to do, early bird and things like that. But the fact that it comes with such strong assessment materials, and put it out there for those of you that don't know, it's based in Kilpatrick-related stuff as well. So it's got the foundation when it comes to the foundation of science related stuff as well. So it's not a be-all and end-all. It doesn't solve everything, but having the education for the educators and having the tools in place that doesn't make you go try to pull things left, right, and center to complete something. I couldn't be more excited. Maybe Sarah's a little bit more excited than me. But I'm so appreciative of your time, your effort. I don't have any questions other than just that broad statement. So thank you for the effort, thank you for the time, and we will be fighting for it for you.
You're going to take a vote first. But
I know, but
I have one thing to add.
please do.
And then I'm going to be done, I promise. The only thing I would add is, to Sean's point earlier, like going into the classroom, you saw what one of the curriculums looked like. And I will tell you, my first time in 11 years, I've seen school committee members into the schools. I would encourage you, I know the teachers aren't going to love this part, but I would encourage you to keep coming in and seeing what instruction looks like in the classroom. Yes, they're going to be learning this, and it's so helpful for them to have you supporting them as they're learning new curriculum and trying to figure some of the things out and figuring out what more do we need to do to help the teachers be successful in this. And I think if you're not in the classroom seeing what's happening, it's hard to make those decisions. So I would just encourage you, anytime you can, I'm going to tell you this till June 30th, you can come to Woodend every day, but I would encourage you to be in the schools and see what's happening. And I appreciate the fact that you took the time to do it.
I think we've all appreciated that throughout the year, as every one of us has the chance to do it. So we thank you for welcoming us in as well, and for the administration and the principals welcoming us in as well, right? It takes all of us being wanting and willing to do that, and I think I speak for all of us when I say thank you for your willingness as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Okay, so before we move on, before you leave, Sean, do you have a motion?
I do. I move, excuse me, I move to express the committee's support for the funding required to purchase and implement the ARC Core literacy curriculum as the school's primary request for ARPA funding.
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? And it passes 6-0. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to take one more thing out of order before we resume to our normal order, and that is to move forward with the letter to support the 25K earmark for robotics program. And we have two members, a parental advisor, and I think, Dylan, you're the president of the club, right? From the robotics team here as well as part of this. So before we do much further, the motion, please.
I move to take out of order item E2, school committee letter to support $25,000 earmark for robotics program.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Sarah. All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none, we're going to take that out of the order. So, Dylan, would you mind going up to the thing just in case we have questions as we go through this? And just briefly introduce yourselves as well. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot a little bit. AJ, can we switch to my computer?
Walking like me.
So, Sanat, please, welcome.
I'm Sanat Patel. So 2013 is when we started the team at Reading. 2015 is when we had our first competition. They asked me to do in 2015, and our team was 2 years old. And I was just still learning how to run a team. And I started my startup at the same time, so I was not present most of the time. But we had a good parent mentor component to that, helping the students. The students, I think there was only 12 or 13 students at the time. We started in November, and the competition starts, the challenge starts in January. So we only have 8 weeks to build a robot. So it was crunch time from the get-go. We built on that, and as you can see, I think this year we had 65 members that had joined. Some of that challenge was huge membership. We lost a lot of mentors due to COVID, and I've been pulling them along the last 10 years or so it's been almost 10 years. So some of them retired, right? Their kids had been graduated from college, in fact, and I was still bringing them back in to mentor. So that's part of the challenge, I think.
Okay, thank you.
So, hi, I'm Dylan Walter. I was the technical president for this past year. It's been my 4th year on the team, and I've learned a whole lot. For me personally, the team has been a lot in the past year, especially being the technical president. I've learned a lot of things about public speaking, leading, and mostly teaching for the most part. You'd be surprised that, especially after what we consider a COVID year, we've had about an increase about 30 new underclassmen. So especially with the deficit in mentors, we had a lot of time teaching the students, and so we've learned a lot of the way. And a lot of the students, we pride ourselves on being a student-led team. So we have a group, what we call this team leads, and we have about 9 of us who lead the charge and run the meetings and everything. And so our goal this year was to teach the the incoming groups what to do. Is most of the seniors are leaving. 12 of us are gone, but relative to the incoming group, we have a really good outlook in the next couple of years.
Great, thank you. So just first an apology to the committee that I didn't get this in the packet. Sanat and I were trading notes. It's not your fault only. We were trading notes over the weekend, and we finally got things about 1 o'clock this afternoon, crystallized a little bit, and then it had to be formatted and put into a memo. So that's my fault, my apologies, as we're working through this. The intent of this, just as a little bit of background, is some of you may remember kind of a liaison type report from a couple of months ago after the March competition here at the high school. Representative Brad Jones was able to come and see the competition, and he was blown away, right, by what he saw, not just by Reading, but the whole competition. Some of those robots are phenomenal, right? It's amazing what some of them do. And, you know, we ran into each other just casually, and he started talking about it, and I couldn't get him to stop, which was great. And he said, well, do they need anything? It's earmark season. And I'm like, well, I mean, I understand their budget is like 50 to 75K a year or something, so I'm sure anything you want to do would be helpful. And Brad said, well, what if I put an earmark in for 25K? And I said, well, they'd love that, I'm sure. And I think then he met with Dr. Milichewski when he was also going to Killam and checking Killam out, and they further talked about that, essentially the same thing. So then fast forward a little bit, and he worked with Representative Haggerty, who represents the other side of Reading, to get this into the House budget as a 25K earmark for the robotics program. However, as many of you know, that's just one side of the budget. We need the other side of the budget to come to the table and agree to that. So my hope and intent here is that we as a committee will support this earmark to Senator Lewis with this kind of brief outline of the program and why we think it's good. This can be edited on the floor. It's not perfect necessarily as it stands, but that's the intent, is that hopefully we as a committee will support the robotics, how do you pronounce it, Dylan? Robotics, yeah. Playing on the rocket and robotics at the same time. As we try to rebuild the program, and to Sanat's point, you know, trying to make sure we can get more mentors and assistant coaches. Some of this might help with an assistant coach stipend from a club type perspective, not a district type perspective, but from a club type perspective, like we see with some of the athletic teams and things like that come forward to us. In addition, as we put out here, annually the budget is between $35,000 and $65,000, depending on whether they qualify for district or world first robotics competitions. The one that we host here is between $45,000 and $55,000 in cost. Some of that's defrayed by, you know, fees from an entry perspective and corporate sponsorships. So this would release a little pressure on that potentially, but you can still build up those corporate sponsorships even more. And, you know, 65 of the team members this year, which was a high watermark, I think. And Dylan, I heard it was a little unwieldy at times, getting 65.
Yeah, a little bit, especially with the little mentors and a lot of underclassmen. It was hard to keep them all on track, but it was definitely worth it in the end for all of them.
Yes. So, you know, that's the essence of it, is to kind of provide Senator Lewis a little bit of the background, that we appreciate what the earmark is and hope that he approves it as part of the reconciliation budget. He is the chair of the education committee there as well, so hopefully he supports it from that perspective. But I'll pause there and see if anybody in the committee has any thoughts, feedback, or points of improvement as the letter, as you can only read it in front of you right now. So any questions for Sanat or Dylan as well? Carla?
I would ask Rich Haggerty to recommend $25,000, and I would ask Brad Jones to recommend $25,000.
They already did together.
Aye.
You want 50,000?
Yeah.
So they've collectively sponsored the 25,000 that's there, and that's already been approved as the House budget for FY23. So that is final.
Next year.
What's questioning is how do we get the Senate side to get that 25 as well? Sean?
So just an observation, most of the earmarks that we've seen come to Reading over the years have been for sort of one-time expenses, you know, a fire truck, a community garden, et cetera. Everything we've outlined here sort of falls into the recurring kind of operating expense bucket. I don't know if there's any, and there's no law against, you know, them earmarking something for operating expenses, so it's fine. But I don't know if there's anything we can capture that has more of, you know, has kind of a one-time feel to it that'll make it sort of easier to say, you know, we're not creating a budget hole for them going forward, that kind of thing. Just a thought. Again, I mean, there's nothing precluding us from getting 25,000 for operating expenses. It's just an observation.
Right. Some of those are parts, robot parts, but I think that adds up to maybe $12,000, I think. Rios and some of those, replacing those are like 5,000, but that's every few years, probably like every 3 or 4 years.
So we can add, replacement of expensive robot parts.
Right, we
you
get
know.
laptops.
Okay. Chuck?
I just have that's a good point. You want it to go towards something that's not a sustainable item, but more of a one-time type. But my question is, I guess, back to Susan again, do we have to spend or do they have to spend the earmark in that year, or can they put it in an account? So if they spent the $12,000 on the parts, can they keep the remaining monies for future years?
Yes, I believe the earmarks carry over from fiscal year to fiscal year. It's a fund that's managed through the municipality. So I can confirm that for you, but I do believe it rolls over.
That would be good for them to know, then they don't have to worry about using it all up and kind of save it for a parts account or something.
Right, inventory, yeah.
Is that approximately correct, Senate?
Mm-hmm.
An extra space in the word "and."
Yeah. Typing, thank you for the typing. Okay, anybody else have any thoughts or feedback? That's good, Sean, go ahead.
This one's much more pedantic.
Yep, I like pedantic.
Should share some of what that money would support. Should that be a colon at the end of that before your bulleted list begins?
Fair enough.
I'm looking at the educators. Does that make sense?
Just at the
I'm
end of the
looking-
first paragraph, basically put a colon here instead of a period.
I agree.
Okay. I think, and Susan, this goes into their, robotics account, right? It doesn't go anywhere to our operating fund or anything else like that, right?
That's correct.
We're a 501(c)(3).
Well, that's actually a good question. So, I mean, because there's the parent organization that's the 501(c)(3), but there's also the student activity account that's here, right?
And that's an entirely different account as well, with different rules and regulations.
That's what I was thinking.
So I think this is going to have to go into that student activity account.
Yeah.
Which would be fine to pay for these kind of things as well.
Sure.
Maybe the stipend becomes a bit of a question when it goes into that bucket. But if it carries over, it's not as much of an issue. It can be used for robots, computers.
Correct.
Other costs from a, hosting of the
Right, 'cause I
organization, the
think
team
Mr.
perspective.
Strout's stipend comes from that, or is it?
No, that comes from the,
Parent.
that comes from the greater,
Okay.
what's that?
Friends, is it a friends?
No, it doesn't, no. Mr.
Part
Strout, this is a contracted
Part of the
stipend.
contract.
It's part of the contracted stipends
It
for
is.
Mr.
It's
Strout.
from the operating budget.
And that's where we've had kind of a weakness is, if he's not in the shop, we can't operate the shop. So you need somebody from the school to be there, and then before the end of the season, he's definitely I see he's burning out, so we'll try to give him some time away, but it's very difficult. So having an assistant coach there would definitely help.
Okay. Okay,
Motion.
we'll take a motion.
I move to approve the submission of a letter to Representatives Lewis and Haggerty, Senator Lewis, Representative Haggerty, and Representative Jones in support of a $25,000 earmark for the RMHS robotics team.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Carla. Any further discussions? All in favor? All opposed? And it passes 6-0. Thank you so much. I know you might be writing your own as well, but at least this one has our support as well, so,
Fantastic. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me save that. And I think we need to switch the input again, AJ, and I think we're going to move, actually, we'll go back to the beginning with public comment, which brings us back to anybody here in the audience that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda. It's generally restricted to 3 minutes. It should be directed to me, and it should be with regards to anything that is in the purview of the school committee. And seeing none, we'll move forward. All right, from a consent agenda perspective, Sean, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded by Chuck. Any questions, or anybody want to pull anything out? Sean?
Yeah, I have an edit on the April 14th minutes. And I don't have I'm in the packet in front of me, but on the bottom of page 7, Tom, I don't know if you want to You can pull them up.
Can you
What
switch
we
me
can do-
back to the control, AJ? Sorry about that. I actually have them up, so. The April 14th ones? Is he Scott? Sorry. Sorry, Scott. I keep saying the wrong name. All right.
So it's page 7.
Hold on.
Oh,
let me
yeah,
slide it
sorry.
over.
Page 7 of the April 14th minutes, which I believe are the ones you're looking at.
This is, for some reason, the screen goes off the screen, so I can't scroll. So page 7 of April 14th. Let's make sure this is April 14th. It is. So it's page 16, right? There, page 7.
Page 7. Yep, scroll up a little bit more. You're actually on page 8. If you could just scroll up, it's towards the bottom of page 7. So it says, I think it's just the phrasing. It says, Mr. Brandt is concerned and wants to make clear that these students are treated like second-class citizens. What I actually said was I want to ensure that these students are not treated like second-class citizens. So it'd be great if we could make that edit and not have this documented for all time.
Is that what you're looking for?
Maybe just replace make clear with ensure. No, not there is good. But the words make clear, if we could just say ensure. Appreciate that. I will have to get elected again someday, so.
Okay, so as amended now. Any further minutes adjustments? Sarah?
I'll just point out, there is a typo, I believe, 2 small paragraphs above what is the implication. There's a random S. What is the implication for RISE? The next section down. Yep, to your left.
The
Yep.
floating S.
Just delete the S. Thank you.
Okay. While we're on it, anybody else want to add anything?
Mike, I'm not sure my description encapsulates what I was trying to say, but we can leave it.
Yeah. These were a little bit more voluminous as we were going through them, but that's okay. We'll work on that. Okay, so we are now as amended.
As amended.
From a consent agenda perspective. Anything else, anybody? All right, so all in favor? All opposed? And it passes. Okay, so thank you for catching that. Sean. All right, we'll move on to reports. And Smrtha, let's see if we can get mics over to you real quick as well. And the big one too, so.
Okay, so first off, the most pressing thing that has been going on in school is AP exams. Many classes for juniors and seniors have been very empty, with many people taking the exams. It's been very stressful, but generally everything seems to be going well, and it should all be over by the end of this week, which is great. These last 2 weekends have also been SAT days for juniors as well, adding to the very test-strong environment right now that's going on the last 2 weeks. And adding to the empty classrooms is the amount of people who've been sick in the last few weeks. There's so many people that have had the flu or COVID, as well as like the common cold and stomach bug, and it's just been really crazy in terms of non-exam related absences. And coming up this Friday is Unity Day. There's many mixed feelings regarding this event, mainly because I think people still aren't very sure what exactly it entails and how it will be run. But I, for one, am very excited, and it seems like a lot of fun. There's a huge variety of so many different stations that we were presented to choose from. Some of my favorites being a bubble tea making workshop, card games, coloring, and baking workshops. There will likely be a very low turnout of seniors for reasons I cannot explicitly say, but
Some of us know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I think it'll be very fun and successful, and a lot of fun for everyone who will be attending. And while non-school affiliated, a majority of seniors have taken part in the Senior Assassins grade-wide water gun game, and many of you may already have seen some part of this around the neighborhood in one way or another. But the game is close to finishing, and it's been a fun way for seniors to come together And yeah, and a few weeks ago, the juniors had their prom, and from what I've heard, it sounded like they've had so much fun dancing and hanging out with friends. And now that the seniors only have about 9 days left, we are counting down the days to our own prom, 2 weeks away. The senior countdown posters will also be going up every day starting today. They'll be hung from the rafters on Main Street, and students have been working pretty hard to present these really gorgeous posters counting down their days. But yeah, that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Smrtha. We won't press you on the why seniors won't be there. Okay, moving down the list, Dr. Stein.
So I love going after Samantha. She's always got the best information. So I'm going to try to coordinate with her a little bit. Some of the exciting things that we actually have going on that you wouldn't find exciting, but I do, are we actually have a committee looking at attendance and our attendance policies and procedures across the district. And also we're really working very hard at developing our social emotional learning curriculum and a thread throughout the district of what is important and how we're supporting students. And to that end of really building the consistency and alignment, we are actually having on June 1st, Lynn Lyons is coming and doing a full day training with all of our school psychologists, social workers, and then it's going to be open to counselors and team chairs and nurses as well. Additionally, in terms of really thinking about that alignment and consistency, which is so important, we also are able to offer 30 slots for Wilson training coming up for any of our staff that is interested, which is very exciting for us to continue to build our teachers' knowledge and have access to different teaching strategies. And we also are continuing our work with our community partners to really make sure that all of the activities that we're offering throughout Reading are accessible to everybody and can meet a variety of people's needs. And to that end, just as a reminder, tomorrow night, the CPAC is holding one of their first hybrid meetings. If you'd like to come in person, it is at 7 o'clock at Parker Middle School in room 104. And there is also a virtual link for anyone who would like to join that way. And Reading's Director for Social Justice, Consistency, Alignment, and Equity will all be there, that one person. Reading's Director for Social Justice and Equity will be there to help us work on our consistency and alignment across the district, is the way that sentence should have said. And then additionally, at 6:30 at Parker Middle School, the majority of our team chairs will be joining Allison Wright and I to just welcome parents, answer any questions, especially around transitions, a little bit of a meet and greet as we think about ending this school year and starting next school year. So if anyone's interested, please come by Parker tomorrow night and say hello.
Great, thank you. Before we go to Dr. Hardy, it's been pointed out to me that this might be Smrtha's last meeting with us.
Oh my goodness.
It depends on if you are going to attend after you graduate or if you're going to join us in Boston. Oops, sorry. For a meeting soon. But it will be after your last day of school. So if this is your last meeting with us, I think it would be awesome if we can get a picture with you before you leave. Because you've been phenomenal for us, and you've always told us the truth in your very kind way that you do. Speaking of Joanne, speaking truth to power. So, do you know if you're going to be able to attend? Our other meeting is 5/26 or 6/9 or 6/16. So technically, the last two would be after you graduate. You're more than welcome.
Wow, that's like far ahead thinking. Well, I'm just thinking in the mind of like as a student, like how will I get information that I can share if I'm not going to be like in school and like talking to people?
Very good answer. Don't feel pressure.
This will be her last.
Just welcome to come at any other meeting.
You could show up as a surprise.
I could show up.
So with that said, can we get a picture, please?
For your college dorm.
Blow it up to poster size. You can hang it over.
Put it on the walls.
It's a sadly joyous occasion. Okay, so now moving down the rest of the reports. Dr. Hardy?
All right. I wanted to give you just 2 quick updates on our vacation academies. We had our successful April Vacation Academy, and as you may have remembered, one of the new components we were very excited about was adding in some social emotional learning for our students. And so that was a really great addition to the program. We also did not have a snow day, as we did in February, so we were able to execute the 4 days, which I believe led to better attendance. We did collect feedback, again, from families, and for the most part, received very positive feedback, especially around the new component we added. And if the constructive feedback we got were some pieces around communication, and also publishing the dates and getting information out sooner to families so that they could plan. So I thought those were really good comments. Some of like the last minute logistics that went on were, we could have done a better job communicating. So I really appreciate the families that took the time to fill out the survey. As you know, we work really hard whenever we collect that information to really apply it, and we value hearing the experiences of families as they interact with our schools. So, looking ahead to the summer, we are looking to offer a summer vacation academy. It will be different from the vacation academies in that for those February and April vacation academies, we cast a wide net and welcomed all students to attend if they were able. The summer program is going to be a bit more targeted. We're going to target the students that we believe were really had the greatest impact from interrupted learning and even the disruptions in attendance and whatnot that we continue to see this school year. So that will be like a targeted invitation. That program is going to mirror the days and hours of the extended school year, where we'll be housed in the same building. And so that will provide kind of a nice sense to the program and some supports. Additionally, we will be offering what we're calling a summer adventure program that will be paired with our academic program as well as the extended school year program in order to provide a longer day for families that require that childcare. We know not all families can leave work at 11:30 to pick their student up from a summer program. We want to make sure that this program is accessible to all of our students who need it. And so Chris Nelson, our Director of Community Education, is partnering with actually the YMCA. We'll be coming in and doing some enrichment in the afternoons with our students. So we're really excited about that, a bit more of a camp style for the students, but also we'll have the supports that we need for our kids coming from ESY and or the academic program. So more to come.
That's great to hear. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Hardy. Ms. Baton?
Yes, thank you. I have 2 brief reports this evening. The first is to share that we're approaching our MSBA eligibility commencement date of June 1st for our Killam Building project. And within your notes this evening, you saw some correspondence related to the educational profiles survey. that needs to be completed and submitted to the MSBA by August 30th. Secondly, I think you've probably likely seen the construction going on at Turf 1. Argus Construction is moving swiftly through the project. We're still scheduled for final completion by the end of August. Within 4 weeks, their work will be out of the ground, and they'll be working on the surface of the field. So things are moving along quite well.
Just a quick point there. It was in the minutes as a question. Is it Argus, A-R-G-U-S, or Arcus, A-R-C or K-U-S?
Argus, A-R-G.
A-R-G? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so Dr. Milczewski.
Great. One announcement, and Tom gave a little teaser here. Our next school committee meeting, which is May 26th, will be held in Boston. We feel that for this year, in order for our Boston resident families to attend school committees that have to come to Reading, we feel that it's important to provide more access, that we're going to be hosting the next meeting in Boston. So we're looking to land our final site for that night. We have it down between two. Both are located in Dorchester, which we feel like most of our families are located around that area, so trying to make it as accessible as possible. We will host the meeting at 7 p.m. RCTV will be able to record the meeting and then share back out the recording likely within 48 hours. For those who are able to attend, before the 7 o'clock meeting, we'll also have pizza and drinks at 6:15. So we're going to invite sort of all of our community to join us, Boston residents, Reading residents, families to come and join us for the school committee meeting. There'll be a couple of light items on the agenda, and the biggest agenda item will be a METCO update, which will be shared by not only Mr. Martin, but by some families and some students as well. So we're very excited about having that next meeting in Boston, and we'll be sharing the logistics with the community as we develop them over the next couple of days.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, liaison updates. Sean?
No report, just a plug really and we've alluded to this tonight, but the next ARPA meeting is of course on Wednesday, and so that'll be the opportunity for us to fight and scrape and claw for $2 million for the literacy curriculum, which of course we're all happy to do. So just a plug for that.
We are cross-posted for that, so if anybody wants to join, they're welcome to be there. And I think we will have a lot of the literacy leadership team there as well, from what I understand. Okay, great. Carla?
Board of Library Trustees is meeting now. So I don't have an update.
Okay. Chuck?
I missed the Arcasa meeting last week because I had to be at junior prom pictures, which is, I was told I had to be, so I missed it. And so I didn't have any update on that, but I'll reach out to Erica to find out if there's anything I need to report to the committee. And the Recreation Committee is meeting right now as well, so I'm not there, obviously.
Okay, thank you. Erin?
As Jen already shared, CPAC is meeting tomorrow night, and it is a hybrid meeting, so the hope is that that will encourage attendance, so people can either go in person to Parker, or there's a Zoom link, if that makes it easier for attendance. The policy subcommittee will be meeting Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. virtually.
Okay. Sarah?
Just one quick update. RCTV board met a couple weeks ago at the end of April. The most pertinent thing for schools would be the continued discussion around space. So all part of the broader space conversations going on in town. But should the community center idea get some action legs, what that leaves the Pleasant Center up for grabs, could that be a place that RCTV moves, et cetera. So they're just really thinking about expanded space for programming and community meetings and those kinds of things. So to be continued.
Okay. Ms. Baton mentioned briefly that we're getting close to kicking off the MSBA portion officially. But in the meantime, Fidel has been out in front pushing on a lot of things very actively in support of it as well for us. And, Joe and Kevin from facilities filled out the application for us to submit to PBC. I tweaked it a little bit to add a few things to it that needed to be added there, and included our submission to MSBA from 2021, so they had that as full background and documentation, and submitted that officially to PBC to get the process started with them. We are still need to figure out exactly who and when we're appointing to the building committee because of all the logistics around that, but we'll figure that out in due time. We're not due to finalize that officially until the end of July, if I remember the timeline as it stands right now. But we'll get that, it's probably sometime in our June meetings. Technically, we don't appoint, if I recall correctly. There's a three-person appointment committee that appoints to this. The chair would be one, and then there's, I think it's the select board and the town moderator, if I recall correctly. So, we have to work through that. We might have some recommendations that we put forward to it, but since it's the permanent building committee for schools, not the schools building committee, it's not our full control according to some of the rules. So I'll get that documented for everybody so everybody sees why and where, and we'll get that all figured out. Go ahead.
Thank you. So is this going to the permanent building committee and then being launched out of the district from them?
So it is officially, per our bylaws, we have to submit a request for anything over 150,000, and then they have dominion. So the question becomes, but you can add 4 members, up to 4 members to it, specifically aligned to who the requesting authority is. So we, as the school committee, will be the requesting authority. There's a question right now about whether officially that kicks off with our request from 2 or 3 years ago for the initial study that led to our submission, or whether that kicks off with the town meeting conversation in November, where they officially give us the, I think 2.2 million is the estimate right now. So we're working through some of that logistics. We can, with MSBA, create a committee and then replace it with another committee as a possibility. We may or may not want to go down that path and just create the committee appropriately.
So the paperwork that's going out in July?
Yes.
Right, it's going to the permanent building committee? Who?
The paperwork that's going in July is going to MSBA.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I misheard you.
Yeah.
It sounded like it was going to the permanent building committee, who was going to be the person the group to send it.
That's what he said.
Okay.
What did I say?
Okay.
You were sending it to the permanent building.
I sent, so there's paperwork to officially request of the permanent building committee they take a project on. That's the paperwork that I submitted as a result of what Joe and Kevin put together, and, Fidel and Tom and Susan had input into it as well. That's just so that process starts with the permanent building committee.
Okay. When you see so many people getting involved, I'm afraid of who's carrying the ball to submit it to MSBA, but that's not happening.
That's
Okay.
not I don't think
Thank
that's a
you.
concern. But it's fair, because there are a lot of people involved.
Right.
Right? Tom, Susan, if I misstated anything,
That's accurate.
please speak up. Okay. All right, so we'll move on from reports, and we will now move to old business and this school choice, which is technically out of order because it's D before C. So Sean, do you have a motion for me, please?
Move to take out of order item D1, school choice grade and school open seat projections.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none, passes. All right, so, Susan?
So I will begin this evening with a brief overview of our school choice implementation. This brief PowerPoint will provide you with a refresher overview of the school choice, the timeline of school choice, the number of open seats by grade and school, and a review of the application and lottery process. Oops, sorry. We went over this slide at our last school committee meeting, but very briefly, for the community, school choice is an opt-out state program which allows Massachusetts school districts to accept students who reside in other Massachusetts towns. School committees may opt out of school choice by voting on by June 1st of every year. School choice was a program designed to fill available seats in school districts, and the children of Reading Public Schools staff could enter the lottery, and we feel this could be an effective recruitment and retention strategy of our high-performing staff. Students who enroll in our program through school choice can stay with us through graduation. The community Reading would receive $5,000 per student who enroll in grades 1 through 12. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. And $2,500 for children who enroll in grade kindergarten. These dollars come to the school committee or deposited into a revolving fund under the school committee's purview with no need for future appropriation. The Reading Public Schools may use these funds to address a wide range of district needs, and the school department will not incur transportation costs for participating students. Parents and caregivers will be responsible for transporting their children to Reading through school choice. The next slide is a timeline of the implementation of school choice. On this evening, we'll review with you the number of open seats that we've identified by grade and school. On Wednesday, May 11th, we'd open the school choice application process. On Thursday, May 26th, school committee is scheduled to review the school choice policy. Would you like me to pause? I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there a
or I can
question?
continue.
No.
All right,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. On Wednesday, June 1st is the deadline to submit applications. Friday, June 3rd, we're going to conduct a lottery per school, per grade. On Monday, June 6th, or by Monday, June 6th, caregivers will be notified of whether or not their students have been selected by email. On Wednesday, June 8th, caregivers will have a deadline to confirm acceptance. By Monday, June 13th, we'll be contacting waitlisted students to fill openings. And then again on Tuesday, August 30th, we'll conduct a second series of lotteries if the specified number of seats have not been filled. This is a lot of information, so feel free to let me know if you have any questions. On the next slide, we've provided for you an outline by level of the number of open seats. And I will share with you that in your school committee packets this evening, there's a letter that describes the approach we've taken to identify available seats and breaks out the available seats by elementary school, by grade, by classroom. But very briefly, we've identified 71 seats that could be available for the next school year. And through school choice funding, that would represent $335,000. We believe there are 8 open seats available at kindergarten level, 18 seats in grades 1 through 5, 25 seats grades 6 through 8, and 20 seats at the high school 9 through 12. The approach that we took to identify available seats was two-tiered. The first was we reviewed our current enrollment, known enrollment for the fall. We reviewed our Boston resident projected enrollment by grade level, by classroom. We looked at we looked across the schools at like class sizes, and we identified spaces that were open within classrooms without impacting at all class size thresholds that have been established by the school committee. And then the second part of that process was to review these available seats with our school principals, our school leaders, to ensure that they could review these seats through the lens of known student and cohort needs that the numbers just wouldn't reveal to us.
So I'd just share too that we believe in these conversations that this is a pretty conservative approach too. We feel that in conversations, there's additional seats that we consider still to be open seats, but knowing that there's still, we want to leave seats for students who could move into town, students who could return from private school placements, additional Boston residents. So we do, giving ourselves still plenty of cushion in those too. So again, while we allocated, or, in the lottery, 71 total seats, we do believe that there are some other open seats that we're not planning to fill, to try to take a more conservative approach in our first year of trying school choice. We also like to share that we believe that where we're adding students, will have a minimal impact in terms of of class size. Again, a middle school class that may go from 16 to 17, an elementary K class that may go from 17 to 18. Again, so that's just want to emphasize, this does not mean that this is every seat that would push us up to sort of the thresholds that school committee has helped, the guidelines the school committee has provided in the past.
And I'll pause there to answer any questions that the school committee may have.
Start with Sarah.
You might have already said this, I might apologize if I missed it. Susan, can you clarify the kindergarten seats? Are those a mixture, full day and half day, or is that up to the?
They're open seats, so it could be full day. It's all full day.
Thank you.
Sean had his hand up.
I do. The lottery by grade in school, I'm just trying to play this through. If we had, excuse me, if we had one family who entered the lottery with, say, a kindergartner and a second grader, and they both got in, but they drew the lottery at different schools, could we adjust that after the fact to allow that family to have both their kids at one school? Or can we conduct the lottery by grade and then do the school assignments?
The application is by school, right?
Well, we've identified very specific grade levels by school, so.
And I mean, I'm not looking at the table at this moment, but I mean, in the hypothetical, that there was a kindergarten seat and a second grade seat at, I'll pick Barrows, right? In that hypothetical, there's a kindergarten and a second grade seat at Barrows, and a family got a kindergartner and second grader to win the lottery. Could we ensure that they were both at Barrows? Is that possible, given the way that we're structuring the lottery, or?
Well, the way the lottery is taken is we will be pulling names out of a glass bowl, for example, for Barrows Kindergarten. And each name that's pulled out goes on a list, and the student at the top is, and then we do the same for grade 2 at
So,
Barrows.
I understand that, and I understand that we're required to do a lottery, but are we required to do the lottery by school or by grade?
Both.
Okay.
We're very specific about where those open seats are, so we do it by school and by grade.
I don't think I'm asking it well. If we have 8 kindergarten spots.
Yep.
One approach could be you draw 8 names, and the first 3 go to, whatever the first alphabetical school is that has spots, and then, on down the line, right? Which would allow you to make those adjustments in the case of a family, for instance, with 2 students coming in through the lottery. And I would even extend that to the middle school context. If somebody's got a 5th grader and a 6th grader, maybe there's opportunities on the margins to do alignment so that they'd follow their sibling to the same middle school.
So you'd start by grade and not by school. I see.
Yeah. I don't think
the only challenge is if a student has if a family only wants a child at one school, right? So I guess you have to pull them out if they got selected, right?
They do have that option to apply for only a single
school.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part.
So
Okay.
that's the chance they're applying for a
I
seat
thought they were applying
at
for the
a grade
district.
level in the school.
All right, my mistake. I thought they were applying for the district, a seat in the district at that level. Okay.
So unfortunately, I think if you play a scenario out, you could have a family with 3 children who get they align to seats that are available at 2 of those, they don't get the 3rd. We can't kind of mix and match with another spot where maybe they had landed, if that makes sense. So it's just, families can apply to multiple sort of grade levels, multiple schools, same grade level, but it is a by school, by grade level lottery.
Kind of stinks. It's not our fault. I mean, that's the way it's structured, but.
Chuck.
So, not for the purposes of this, but as we talked about this on, I think it was Friday, and I've thought about it a little bit, and I think something that we need to do either, through our leadership is have a discussion with our legal counsel as to other towns that are in school choice and what do their contracts look like, because I think by doing this, we're shedding a light on how the committee and the community thinks in terms of class sizes, in terms of our guidance, and we could potentially be held closer to that in the future through the fact that we're using school choice. And I'm not saying we should put it in our but I'd like to know whether those communities that are in school choice now, do they have that memorialized in their contracts or not? I'd just be interested to know that, because I definitely think that people will be, people as in people that are either applying or other community members that may or may be for what we're doing, will certainly do research and look into what we've done and how we're doing it. So I just like to be prepared for that.
Noted. We can get that. Aaron?
So, we only get 2,500 for a kindergarten student.
Yes.
Does that family have to pay the full day tuition on top of that?
Yes.
Okay. My other question, sort of piggybacking a little bit on Sean, I just want to understand the lottery. So hypothetically, we have, 2 openings in Barrows second grade and, 5 families apply for it. Do we pick the 2 and then also in order draw out the other names so that we have a wait list, so that when you contact those 2, if they say, sorry, we changed our mind, go to the next one on the list? And then hypothetically, if there were also 2 openings at Joshua Eaton second grade and only 1 family applied, could you go to that Barrows family on the wait list and say, we do have an opening at Joshua Eaton, would you like that instead? Can we do anything like that?
We will keep a wait list, and the way that this is structured is by school, by grade, but there isn't anything preventing us from going down the list and offering a family who is interested in coming to school in Reading their choice of maybe another school if there were no seats. I mean, if there were no students accepting the seats.
Okay, so we can get creative like that.
We can.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask my own question. I think this might be where Sean's confusion came from, but our application doesn't list a school I'm applying for. Right.
That's, yes.
It doesn't list a grade. It says entering grade, so it covers that, but it doesn't list a school I'm applying for. So if I'm applying for Joshua Eaton, or if I'm applying for Barrows or something else, or even a checkbox of all of the above or anything else like that. So we might want to, take the application and tweak it a little bit if we are intending this to be a school, this, one by one from an application perspective.
I appreciate that feedback. And back to Ms. Gavin's comment too, it's just occurred to me that on our guidelines, we need to be clear to those families about kindergarten, that if they do choose the full day K, that there's a tuition fee associated with that. So thank you both for those, and Sean, for your comment, because that will help us revise.
Just
Sarah.
suggestion perhaps, following that point. I know other towns, not related to school choice, but who do lottery for schools and placement, ask families to rank their top three or whatever number, so that if it wasn't on their list of, we had an opening, maybe we don't need to reach out to them if it wasn't one of their preferred choices. But just a thought.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any final points, Ms. Batten?
That's it for my presentation. Thank you very much for your questions and your feedback.
Okay, Sean, do we have a motion for this one?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. This
Oh.
was just an update from you,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we'll have small updates to it, but numbers-wise, we're on target, and thank you for the continuous improvement and focus on all this, so we very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
And she noted, and I should have updated the calendar, so it will be on our 5/26 meeting as well, that we'll review, presuming the policy committee comes to a final conclusion in its meetings, we will review that policy update during the 5/26 meeting via the standard process of one meeting after a vote from the policy committee. Okay, so moving forward, then we are now on to E1, which is also technically out of order, the district improvement plan update. And Sean, do we have a motion on that?
Move to take out of order item E1, District Improvement Plan Update.
Seconded by Chuck. All in favor? All opposed? And it passes 6-0. All right, Dr. Milczewski.
Thank you. Scott, do you mind changing that one as well? You might have a link.
Why don't we, while that gets figured out, we'll take a 5-minute recess for people if there's any water or anything else they need to get, and we'll resume at 9:05. 5, and I think we're all set for the district improvement plan update.
Great. All right, welcome back, everyone. So tonight I'm going to speak a little bit about the district improvement plan update. You know that this process started when I was named as superintendent back in February. So tonight I'm going to outline a little bit of what that entry has looked like towards now the culminating product, which is the revision of the district improvement plan, which is ongoing right now. So as a review, there were 4 phases that I outlined in the written entry plan that I shared, starting superintendent back in July. The first was the pre-entry phase from March to July, moving into the listening and learning, which was the phase where I was interacting, trying to learn as much as I could about the community. Then moving into analysis and sharing, which is sharing out both verbally and in writing the report of entry findings. And then last now moving into planning. I'm going to speak about each of these and some of the key activities within each of these phases, and then speak about now what's the timeline and process look like for phase 4, which is the planning process. So first, phase 1, get your eyeglasses ready to see from a distance. Pre-entry March through July. So as the committee knows, I was named a superintendent back in February. That's when I viewed unofficially my entry begin. This phase, you see written here, was I will be seeking to learn more about the Reading context and preparing for the leadership transition. The goal of this phase is to ensure as smooth of a leadership transition as possible. So you know that a lot of this process included meeting one-on-one with principals, having weekly meetings with Superintendent Doherty, meeting with school committee members, consulting with central office team during some of the hiring processes, also observing several different town meetings, whether they were select board meetings, school committee meetings, and town meeting, and then also working with the central office team to learn a bit just about some of the ongoing work in preparation for the summer. Bringing us then to the official start of my time as superintendent was the phase marked by what we call listening and learning. This was the phase that trying to learn as much about the district as possible during that 6-month window. So as I've said many times, looking for strengths, challenges, and opportunities facing the district with the goal of me to be able to develop a deep understanding from multiple perspectives of different aspects of the district and the complexity around each of those themes, and then to gather some of the data that's going to serve as the foundation of the district improvement plan moving forward. As the community knows, a lot of these activities included leading full-day visits in each of our schools, those full one-day visits, but also ongoing visits to schools, spending time in classrooms, leading central office meetings to learn about the different operational systems and practices at central office, including around technology, data use, talent management, special education, health and safety protocols, just to name a few. And then also a lot of time, I would say the majority of this time in this phase was spent listening through a series of meetings, whether they were one-on-one meetings, small group meetings with school committee members, principals, teachers, students, parents and caregivers, district staff, town leadership, different community organizations. As the school committee knows, I feel that all of these different perspectives are critical for me to develop a deep and I think nuanced understanding of where we are as a community. Moving that forward then, while that phase of listening and learning was intended for me to be able to understand, phase 3, analysis and sharing is intended for us as a community to develop a shared understanding of where we are. So you'll see it just says during this phase, I'll share and analyze the data I collected during listening and learning phase. The goal of this phase is for community to develop a shared understanding of some of the strengths, challenges, and opportunities within the district, and also some of the current practices, systems, and structures that guide the district. So I shared that out at the February 17th school committee meeting, and then also in a subsequent written narrative that I shared also with the community around the report of entry findings. So again, that was the mark. I haven't given an update since the end of phase 3, which now brings us to where we are, phase 4. So now what, right? We have uncovered some of the things ahead of us in terms of strengths, challenges, opportunities. Now what do we do with this? And I would share too, I've heard from a lot of community members, we're excited about the future of the district. We know all the different things that we want to happen, where the direction we want to go. Now how do we do it all, right? I think that this is the phase where you try to figure out how do we start to make sense and prioritize all the different priorities and focus areas for us for the future. So phase 4 planning, what you see right now, it says April to August. In the initial entry plan, it said April to June. In a minute, I'll share why I extended that out to August. For those at home who can't see the screen, during this phase, I'll use the data from the analysis and sharing phase to collaboratively develop district-wide goals with the Reading School Committee and determine the district's strategic priorities and actions. I will organize a smaller team of key district and school leaders to develop a plan for implementing the goals, priorities, and actions within the district context. The goal of this phase is to assess and modify the district strategic plan and prepare for implementation. As I've shared with the community several times too, the goal of this phase is not for us at this phase to revamp or to rewrite the district strategic plan, but to build off of the foundation that was created by Dr. Doherty in the previous administration, which that district strategic plan, district improvement plan spans the next 2 years as well. So this phase upcoming and actually, and just starting up, I decided to push it off to August for a couple of reasons. We feel like in addition to the report of entry findings that both myself and Dr. Hardy have led, there's also 3 other sources of data that we think are really important in this process that are not quite ready yet, that we think are critical to put alongside our entry plan. One, the district review report. I've been told by DESE that that should be available within the week, at least a draft of that. Again, given that they also did a deep dive at the same time that we were doing a deep dive, it makes sense for us to also have that as a critical part of our district strategic planning. Second piece, special education program reviews. As you likely know, we are also now providing reviews of 5 now, including RISE, of our special education programs. We've gotten back drafts of 2 of those already, which have some good recommendations and findings. We think it makes sense for us to include that as part of our district strategic planning. And then lastly, as the school committee knows, we have recently launched a series of school visits, which are led by each respective principal. The principal hosts a school visit, which includes our central office leadership team, a collection of principals, and usually 1 school committee member to join, to look at certain look-fors in action, and also to give some support and feedback to the principal about what that look-for looks like in action after observing several different classrooms. So our team has started to calibrate and notice some trends that have stuck out from those visits, and we think that it's important that those are also reflected in our district strategic plan. So what's ahead? This is the last slide, is just to outline what's coming so the community and the school committee knows what to expect next. First phase of the process ahead, as we're just started this now, is our district leadership team, which again is comprised of our principals, our directors and coordinators, organizing and synthesizing the findings of the entry report, both myself and Dr. Hardy, and those 3 additional sources that I just outlined. We have a couple of dates for the middle to end of May for us to be able to synthesize again and organize some of those key findings. Then, which I view as, the biggest lift here is to organize what we called in the entry plan the guiding coalition, which will be a smaller group of the DLT and the RTA, to create a draft revision of the district improvement plan, which is going to be built off of what the DLT has organized and synthesized in the middle of May. Once that draft is then created, getting the school committee, the district leadership team, and the RTA to provide feedback on that draft revision of the district improvement plan in July. Then you see the school committee, district leadership team, and RTA to incorporate that feedback collectively and to finalize the district improvement plan at the summer leadership retreat. We do not yet have a date for our offsite, but like last summer, the goal and the hope is to have a couple of days for us to be able to have to work on visioning and strategic planning. The goal is for us at that session for us to be able to finalize a draft of the modified district strategic plan, and then to have that to be able to share out to the community by August, late August, early September, along with the launch of the school year. So again, this is a process that started really back last February. I think we've done a lot of updates to the community on sort of where we stand, what are the big things on our radar for the next couple of years. Now we feel like it's time for us to start to organize that into a document and also start to prioritize all of the many different things that we know are important for our district in the years ahead. So I'll pause there to see if there's any just thoughts, questions, concerns, or feedback from the committee.
Just very tactically, do you have any sense for when we'll have the dates for the retreat finalized?
Yeah, that's something I should get on ASAP.
I agree. I wasn't going to say it, but
it was a question.
As somebody who would both like to attend and go on vacation this summer, that'd be great.
I get the question and the push.
We should probably submit vacation plans to you so we can figure that out, yeah.
Similar to we last year.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
We have some, well, I should say, to give a look at it, we have summer dates and all the availability of our school leaders too, so it's just now matching it with your availability. So.
What are the chances?
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
No? Yes? No. So all of this matches what I was expecting. Have you thought about or have you had a chance to synthesize any of this progress against Focus Area 1 and Focus Area 2 that have happened already, or is that going to come up as a later conversation?
I think that's going to come up as part of tonight when I'm speaking about the superintendent goals and progress. We also, as a team, that's something our district leadership team is taking on this week, is to look at sort of what we had outlined as goals this year, and also sort of how do we make progress, where do we fall short, how does that impact what we do moving ahead. I could also then have put that on a fourth additional piece of data too, reflection on progress towards, 2021, 2022 goals. So I'll make a note of that as an additional source of feedback.
I think we've seen some updates throughout the year on a lot of them already. Dr. Stice has provided a lot of feedback on them. We've seen a lot from Michelle with regards to retention and recruitment and things like that. So I think there's a lot that we've seen in that regard. Maybe the one that seems the most challenging from my perspective is the operationalize Portrait of the Graduate, right? What does that mean from a conceptual perspective? What does that mean from a real tangible perspective? And how do we measure what we were able to get done against that?
I think our team, we've talked about that a few times, and I speak of this with Kevin a lot. We feel we have a lot of work to do to build off the work of the Portrait of the Graduate team from last year. We feel like that was a really good work from a diverse set of stakeholders to come up to say, what do we want our graduates knowing and doing, and being able to do? And we haven't done enough yet to backwards map that. So I think that has to be, I guess, put that as another piece of data or another resource here to make sure that that's a key part of our district strategic plan moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else on this topic, Dr. Milczewski, or should we move to the next one?
Move to the next one. There's no other thoughts.
Okay. And they flow well together, so we'll move on to the next one, which is the superintendent evaluation process, progress, and data review. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start with
You can start while Scott pulls. Do you have anything to pull up on your screen?
People have it in the packet, so
Okay.
they don't need to pull it up on the screen. We can if people want to, but ultimately, what it comes down to from this perspective, while we pull up some of the materials for Dr. Milczewski, is, our process as a committee. I aligned it very much to what we've done historically, but I welcome, and I think Dr. Milczewski welcomes feedback to the changes to it as well, if necessary. So, timeline-wise, it lines up for about a month worth of time to get it done, and of course, I can't find it in the packet, so I'm going to go right to my memo instead. And then, as that includes an initial draft, it includes, the ability to sit down with Dr. Milczewski and review your first draft. If you want to make any changes as a result, nobody has to. But if you want to make any changes as a result, then it gives a little bit of time to finalize that and then submit it as the final copy. I also wanted to, make sure we highlighted, what we agreed to in the past, that we're only really rating in terms of the final summative. You're welcome to put any comments you want on the other topics, but in terms of the final summative, we agreed to only rate the focus indicators, which are the, 7 focused indicators that are included in the memo. And that will be the ones that will drive his overall top-line review. When I coalesce it all into the summative review, I am planning to do, even though it may not be best practice, planning to do just an average of people's numbers. I think that's essentially what others have done in the past in our committee, but I'm open to feedback if anybody has any other alternatives or ideas in that regard as well. So I'll pause here and see if the committee has any further thoughts, feedback, questions, or ideas for improvement. What happened? Anybody? Aaron?
No, I just, without having it visually in front of me, just focusing on the 7 focus indicators, I feel like I'm blanking on what that will look like for us. But once I look at it again, it'll make sense. So that was the expression on my face, was I was like, what does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So there'll be things we're literally not rating then on the,
so what we agreed to as a committee is his final review, his summative will be based on these 7. If you want to provide feedback on any of the others verbally, in written form, or if you decide you want to rate it, you can, but it will not influence his final summative review. Chuck?
So are we going to get Looks like these are going to be due in the next week or so, right? Did we get
We have 2 weeks from now, well, basically 2 weeks from now.
so
To get
we're
the
going to
first
get the, what do they call it, the rubric or the worksheet that,
The rubric is the standard rubric that's available on the DESI website. We can certainly send it out to all the committee as well, and we will. But it's the standard one, so we'll just fill.
The one we've always
The one we've
used.
always used, yep. Well, the one we've used in the last few years, ever since they modified it to this version, at least. And that includes, the top line, and then it includes the focus indicators. In section 1, there's 5, and data-informed decision-making is the last one of them. Section 2, there's 4 or 5, et cetera, as you go down.
so we should just go pull that ourselves off, is that what?
Yeah, I'll make it easy for you. I'll send you a link, so you don't have to worry about pulling it down. And that way, everybody is for sure looking at the same version instead of potentially looking at an incorrect version. But yeah, we can do that. Okay. So timeline-wise, we put up a few things here. Escape. Just so we have it, we have from now until, I gave a weekend, so that went to the 22nd, which is the Sunday, so basically turn it in by the end of that weekend, so that you have time to set time with Dr. Milczewski to review it. It gives you the week before Memorial Day as the first review week, then Memorial Day weekend plus a day or two, I think it's plus 2 days, to get the final version in, and then that gives me the following weekend to finalize the summative. You'll also note in here, and I was very purposeful about who I had these sent to, I don't want to see your review until it's the final one. I don't want to have the chance that it influences mine. I made it very purposeful not to read your formatives, but I don't want to have any chance that I accidentally read your summative before I've done mine. So send it just to the new executive assistant and Dr. Milczewski when you do your draft. And then when you do your final, include me in the send. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on the process before we go to Dr. Milczewski and any data and input for it? Go ahead.
So we're doing these 7 focus indicators.
Yep.
We can write comments under each of these 5 sections if we want,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think too, at the top.
I
there's
know,
a-
I'm like, I
right,
really need the
Here,
visual.
I'll find it because I have it. up.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, because there's
There's
a
a
whole,
box to type away, and it keeps getting bigger.
exactly, but there's a spot, at the bottom, and overall, and
So let me just pull this over. This is, move my comments out of the way, but pull over to the or
Yeah, that's the document.
yeah. So this document is the one that you're referring to, right? And above this section here is kind of the beginning entry section, although it's not included in this for some reason. So in the version that I'll send you, there's like a first couple pages that have your kind of overarching goals and feedback from district improvement, superintendent, and overall goal level. You'll do those. What I generally have done has done these first, because they feed that. And it's kind of a backwards process, if you remember some of the training on it. So you'll do these, you can do it. When we finalize it, what we'll do is, this score will be the only score that leads to the score for the I category at the top. You guys, we all can fill in other scores, but that one will be the only one as an agreement point that we had from the fall that influences the top section for this particular subcategory. Then as we go down, we'll see the same thing for section 2. So Carla, to your point, you'll put your written commentary in here that will support anything you've rated up here, right? And the same thing would apply in the other sections. So you have these other questions here, 1A, 1B, and you see these other ones that are not part of that process, but you can score them if you want. But these two and the averages of them will lead to that top score, essentially, right? For how the category works of the overall.
to your point.
Yep.
We should only be writing comments based on what we agreed to.
What we said was that we could write comments, but they will not influence the scoring this year. What it could be, it's actually important that you think about what you want to write about those other comments, because they may feed into the next year's review process. I would like to see growth in this, I would like to see growth in that. They might feed into the review process for the next year and the goals for the next year in terms of areas for improvement. But these two, in this particular category, will the only two that will average to the overall score for this section as we go
So
through.
to keep it easier for Tom Wise to follow, I would put these comments pertain to 2A and 2B, and then the remaining comments pertain to the other category. I plan on doing all of them.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. I can weed through it and see what you're meaning in terms of that, but if you separate it out, so it says these are the, I usually, when I write them, I'll say from an environment perspective, da-da-da-da-da, from a, but everybody else can do what they feel like is necessary. And you'll have a chance to view the summative as part of the packet for the June 9th meeting, so we can always, if I didn't summarize your thoughts properly, we can always edit it before we finalize approve it. We haven't traditionally done that, but we can do that. Erin?
So I understand what you're saying about feeding next year's goals, but what's the point of us agreeing to focus on these indicators if you're now kind of saying, rank them on everything, comment on everything?
You don't have to.
I don't have to.
But it's clear that you are going to, so I guess I'm.
I don't even know that I'm going to. I haven't
Okay.
made that decision. I think if we go back to, actually going back to the commentary from Dorothy when she put it out there, right? It's part of that as well to a degree. It's like, this is a focus goal evaluation. You're emphasizing the most important work that will move the district forward. As such, the focus indicators you pick should be the ones that most align to the goals. If moving into the future evaluation cycles, there are other areas of practice that require more emphasis than focus indicators. Presumably, goals would change to reflect this. Yeah, we can address that multiple ways, right? This is just the first chance to start addressing that and say, I think he knocked it out of the park in these focus indicators, but these are 2 or 3 areas I'd like to see improved as we move forward to improve the district. And it would be aligned to, 1A and 1C, right? It doesn't mean that you're devaluing what you've done from a focus indicator perspective by doing that, because we all agree that those are the focus indicators that he's being evaluated on. But it is providing more contextual feedback of things that could be improved on that does not devalue what we've agreed as a focus perspective. Does that help answer, Erin?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Chuck?
I just think that's valuable feedback for the superintendent, even though it's not going into the final rating, because there have been a lot of those things that we're not rating that he's been integrally involved in, so.
Absolutely. Okay, does that clarify, Carla? Or I can answer questions, not opining on how you're going to rate, but I can answer questions on this at any point in time individually as well. Okay? So just to hit it home again, timeline-wise, you have this week, next week, and next weekend to do your draft. You'll have the week after that to sit with Dr. Milichewski and review if he has any questions. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? That might clarify things, or did you think about this? Did you think about that? And then you have the weekend after that to finalize it. I have the weekend after that to put the summative together and make it available in the packet for the public by June 7th, and we have the meeting on June 9th. Okay. Now, Dr. Milichewski, you have some points of feedback here as well, or information.
I do. Scott, do you mind pulling up that presentation? Thank you. Keeping Scott on his toes tonight.
Yeah, Scott's moving around a lot.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay, so building off of that, I think everyone now has an understanding of the process ahead. I want to share just a little bit of content of what the committee can expect in terms of just, some of the work that we've led this year that I think could be reflected in the evaluation, and also some of the information I'll be sharing in a Google folder for the committee to review as well. So first, even before I dive into some of the work and the goals and the focus indicators, I often just have people ask, so what are some of the things you've been focusing on this year? What are some things on your mind as a first-year superintendent? I think it boils down to me to 4 things that I've just kept in my own mind. Again, not anything formal. What am I trying to do? The first is trying to lead with what I believe are my core values. I think at this point, I want the committee and the community to have an understanding of what you can expect from me as a leader moving forward. I think during the interview process, you get a sense of what someone will be like, but hopefully by now you get an understanding of how someone is on a day-to-day basis. In my entry plan, I outlined 3 core values that I think drive who I am, and hopefully that the committee and the community has seen me live those out this year, and hopefully sees that this is just how I will be moving forward. First, excellence, that I'll hold a high bar for myself, for our team, and for our community, and for where I think we can go as a district. Second, equity, that we really need to look at and make sure that every single student in our district has success, and we're able to look at gaps across different lines of race, socioeconomic status, disability status, and make sure every single student in our district has success. And then lastly, collaboration. Hopefully this year the committee has seen just the ways that I try to lead through collaboration and being as part of a team. And those are just the way that hopefully, again, that when I speak about my first year, just trying for the community to deeply understand how I am and how I operate as a leader. And hopefully that those core values that I outlined at the beginning of the entry align to how I act and how I lead. Second is trying to build a strong central office team. I think that is at the core of any district, is of course having a strong central office team. I also believe that was especially important in a context where we've had a significant amount of turnover in the central office team. If you look at new superintendent, new assistant superintendent for learning and teaching, new HR director, new director of operations, finance and operations, new MEDCO director. Just to name a little bit of the transition. So I felt now more than in a typical year, a typical context, building a strong central office team is critical for positioning us to be able to move the work forward in the future. And that also should say to complement the strong team that we believe we have sort of at school-based as well. Third, develop relationships with various district stakeholders, staff, families, students, community members. I also feel that this is especially important when I say with community in a town like Reading, where I believe that the town is deeply invested in education, and you have a lot of people who really want to be a part of the improvement efforts. So one of my goals this year was to spend as much time building relationships, not only with students, staff, families, but also as many members of the community as possible. And then lastly, generating momentum for the future of the district. I think that momentum is built when you start to get some wins, when you start to do some things that get some, that show that you can move the work forward, and also you generate some positivity and optimism for where you want to go and set some direction for how you want to achieve those goals. So again, when I just speak off the record with people and they say, how's your first year going? What are you trying to do? These are some of the things that initially just come to my mind. I don't spit out my goals in the focus indicators when I speak about those. But shifting into, I know it's a goal-driven evaluation process, but I thought that was important just for people to have an understanding of where I am thinking year 1. I already have many thoughts in my head about year 2. Of course, at this time, I think in any leader's mind after year 1, you're already saying, okay, I'm now ready to hit the button for year 2 and very eager to get going. So again, the 4 goals, the first 2 are district improvement goals. Third, professional practice goal. 4th, student learning goal. The first 3 goals, as I've shared with the committee, are the ones that were outlined as recommended goals to the new superintendent induction program. We did add in the 4th one, which we think is one of our big levers for change for the future too. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to speak about each goal, and then I'm going to quickly speak about just some of the pieces of evidence that you can expect in the Google folder around these goals, and then I'm going to dive into some of the work that we've led this year under the particular focus indicators. First, effective entry and direction setting. By late spring, the district will have broad recognition by key stakeholder groups about the district's most critical needs, and will have a widely understood process underway to identify the strategies and goals that will address those needs most effectively and the measures that we'll use to assess progress. This centers around having a written entry plan, having then the report of entry findings, and then part 3, shifting into starting to get that group of key stakeholders in motion to be able to move that into a revised district strategic plan. Some of the benchmarks for that, first 2 are process related around presenting, completing the presentations on schedule, starting to develop the process, which we're starting now. Then lastly, I did speak with Chris McGrath about this one. She said, I don't really like this measurement, but it's sort of the benchmark, but it's what we have, so I'll use it. It's also what we committed to. It's the results of a spring survey of key leaders, including administrators, teacher leaders, school committee, and union leaders, that they demonstrate an awareness, 90%, and engagement, 75%, in the entry process, and confidence, 75%, that the report of entry findings captured important insights about the state of the district and the issues that require most attention. I like the sentiment of this. I think that there should be broad recognition of what's in the entry report, that people felt a part of it, and that people feel that this is the confidence that it captures what's important for our district. I don't know if I love just the different numbers in there. I think a little bit arbitrary, and also not really sure how to capture that in a survey maybe necessarily, but our team is working on that now. We'll have some quantitative data in the Google folder for the committee. 2, maintaining momentum during the tradition, district improvement goal. Keep the district moving forward during the year's transition and leadership by working with principals and other district leaders to ensure that meaningful progress is made on critical district and school goals. I remember this committee very early on in my time saying they didn't think it was just a year for me just to listen, just to learn, but also a year to lead. Tonight, when I speak about some of the work and particular indicators, we'll reflect on some of those things that we've actually led and moved forward. But some of the key actions during this include for me to create, establish goals with all of our administrators and principals. That's been completed. Complete formative evaluation conferences with all of our principals, again, completed. Conduct at least 3 school visits to each school. I think almost some of you have almost already completed that goal. And then by June 30th, complete the summative evaluation reports. Again, I think these are very foundational expectations for year 1 leadership. I don't think they're setting a super high bar here. But some of the benchmarks to capture this: completed educator evaluation tools, the log noting the visits. The part of here that I think is most important for me, which I'm excited to share with the committee, is this last part, the survey of district leadership team, principals, coordinators, directors, central office leadership, assessing progress towards district goals. That's sort of what Tom was speaking about before. I think there's some things that we feel as a district leadership team that we are really excited about work that we move forward this way. There's some things that we felt we did not make as much momentum on those as we want to, and things that we think we need to prioritize moving forward. And I look forward to sharing that with the committee, both to assess my effectiveness this year and also to pave the way for what's coming moving forward. So in the Google folder, you can expect to have a survey just with some of those responses that I think highlight some of the trends in terms of, again, things we did well, things we didn't do as well this year in terms of progress. And again, I think that this goal, we hopefully as an administrative team didn't just sit on our hands this year, but actually got to move things forward while listening and learning. Goal 3, new superintendent induction program. This is the least exciting goal. This is just basically complete the new superintendent induction program. I forget which one of you it was gave me the challenge to be a star in the program too, and to not just complete the program. I don't know who it was.
I'm sure it was Tom.
Tom wanted me to excel. You can ask my colleagues. I've been putting my best foot forward in all of the sessions. Chris McGrath has written a letter again that outlines that I've completed all expectations. She is not my evaluator. She is not, so she says it's a confidential coach. She can't say much more outside of, what's written in the letter that I completed the program, and I've been a good resource for my colleagues in here. So not much more in that letter. I will also share, I think that the program's been really valuable for my own leadership development, and I'll share out a written reflection of just some of the things that I've learned through the program. One of the best parts of the program for me has been that you are around almost 40 new superintendents who are just grappling with similar challenges in different contexts, and also just some new challenges. And I've developed good relationships with a lot of first-year superintendents who have helped me make sense of different challenges that I'm facing, who I have learned a lot by helping support them through their challenges. And I think that network of support has been really valuable to me. And I'd also like to give a thanks publicly to Chris McGrath, my coach. Chris, as you know, is around all the time, and it's awesome. Chris comes to school visits. Chris is around our central office team meetings. And she has a really good understanding and sense of how we're doing as a team. She says she loves to be here. She gives us good coaching, good feedback. She's also supported other members of our team and given them support and feedback. I think that she's been a member of our team in a really positive way too. I think I got lucky having Chris as my coach.
Can I ask a question on this? So back, I think it was when we were deliberating on whether to hire you, we had discussions around putting, having you in this program, and there was some feedback that maybe it wasn't enough. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on, did you get enough? And it sounds like you think you did. I'd just be interested to hear that in your white paper or what you put on.
I will reflect on that in the written, and I'll also share. I don't think for anyone in a really a superintendent is a really challenging role, building principal is a really challenging role, and you can never have enough support. I think that the new superintendent induction program does a good job of giving you both content, like what are some of the things that you need to do they're going to be grappling with that help you, and also giving you the support through Chris and through your network of peers. Now, I also lean heavily on sort of my own personal professional networks throughout the year, too. I think, as you all know, I have several superintendents who I'm really close with, a lot of retired superintendents I'm really close with, a lot of community partners, nonprofit organizations that I think, schools of education, different groups that I can lean on. I don't make many decisions without vetting them by 5 or 6 people who I really trust, and then using that to synthesize. And I don't think that's a practice I will stop sort of after year one. So I think new superintendent induction program is great, but if a superintendent thinks that's going to be sufficient to help them to navigate all of the challenges that someone will face, I think it's a little bit naive. So I feel fortunate to have a lot of other good networks to support me as well.
Thank you.
And then I'm also thinking, well, NISIP continues, as you know, for the next 2 years. It's not a one-year commitment. It looks a little bit different the next 2 years, but it's not just a one-year commitment. Then coaching, supporting, developing principals, our fourth goal. I spoke about this at length, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight. I think what we, in summary, we know that one of the biggest levers you can pull in district improvement efforts is to invest in the instructional leadership skills of your principals. And I think you heard Dr. King speaking about that a little bit tonight. Also, we know the context in our country is that not many districts are doing this well. This is really hard work to figure out how to start to put in some good and sustain some good structures around developing principal talent. So our goals sort of for this year were to get some of our work off the ground and running in alignment with what research and best practice says around coaching, supporting, developing principals, and using feedback to monitor how we're doing and make adjustments. After year one, I look forward to sharing sort of with the committee what worked for us this year. There's some things I think principals feel, hey, that's good. I feel encouraged with some of that work. And other things that, feel we weren't as effective. As one example, I can share that, and I'll do this as number 3 right here. One thing that principals feel that we did effectively generally is spend time or we're talking with one another in each other's schools around teaching and learning, right? To help us give each other coaching and feedback on how we can move the needle for kids. Something that we could do more effectively is in those one-to-one coaching sessions, aligning them more closely to a district goal, right? Instead of having sort of 8 or 9 different sort of goals that we're all working on and kind of feeling like it's a little bit more in silos. I'll share all that more coherently in writing, but it's to share that this year was not meant to us say we're knocking it out of the park with this work yet. It's let's get some of these things moving in place, assess how we're doing, and then kind of gear up for next year. And I'm confident that we've been able to do that this year. So moving into where I'll speak into some more specifics around the work this year. I believe there's 6 indicators, unless I'm missing one.
It's 6.
It's 6.
Did I miscount?
Counting?
Everybody said 7, but it was 6. Yeah.
And I can't figure out, I think I said 7 and I have no idea why, so.
Tom started.
Tom started.
Oh, was that what it was? Okay.
Tom can't count.
This is our data guy.
On to data-informed decision-making, number 1, 1E. There are a lot of different things that we could put under each of these indicators to, we think, reflect some of our work. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them for each that we think were especially impactful for our team. I'd also like to say, I think that you have a really hard job to evaluate too when you're evaluating, I think, the work of me, but I also view my work as sort of part of an entire team. So a lot of this work that I'm leading, I can't really even take credit for necessarily, but it's me being alongside sort of the team leading the work, and you'll see what I mean by that as we dive in. So 1E, data-informed decision-making. I think 2 examples of this. One, of course, the report of entry findings. The report of entry findings should have both qualitative and quantitative data around the state of the district. What are some of the things that we think are working? What are some things that are not working? And being clear with where those sources of data came from. So I believe all of that's outlined in our report of entry findings. The second piece, again, I can't claim credit for all of this work around literacy curriculum review. I believe that while on the surface, it was easy for someone to look at our MCAS data and say that math should be a priority area and math should be a focus area, which we believe that the district's done a lot to put in motion in terms of addressing that. We also feel that through a deeper dive, we realize that we have a lot of work to do sort of in terms of improving student outcomes in literacy. So a lot of the work that we've done in terms of literacy curriculum review, we view as data-informed decision-making because we are identifying gaps in student outcomes and also aligning sort of our next steps and our responses to what data and best practice and research show about high-quality curriculum materials. So again, I think on a daily basis, we're making data-informed decision-making, but I think those are two items that stick out that we felt reflect that indicator for us as a team. Commitment to high standards. This indicator says fosters a shared commitment to high standards of service, teaching, and learning with high expectations and achievement for all. This is the one I'm most excited about. This is the one I'm most excited about for the future of the district too. One of the reasons I really love this community is I love that I am not the only one in the district who really believes in this. From everyone who I speak to, they say, yeah, we're a good district and we really want to continue to get better and really have a high standard. I can tell you this community has a high standard for our staff, for our students, and for our administration, and I think we all really appreciate that. Some of the things that we feel embody a high commitment to high standards, one has been our commitment to finding creative ways to increase time on learning for our students, whether that's through tutoring initiatives in all of our schools, creative vacation academies, summer programming you're hearing now, also like pairing summer academy programming with community partners that can extend time on learning for our students in different ways, but continuing to think about how do we increase time on learning for students. 2, we know we had a lot of work to do within our METCO program. Carla was with us when we did our visit to Boston this summer, where our METCO CEO, Millie, shared that this is a program that she knew really needed to make some positive progress. We feel that one of those ways is by expanding our METCO program by 40 students. This is not a me thing. This is an us. This is our leaders. This is Mr. Martin, a team thing. In addition to moving our METCO program forward, which we think is a huge win for our community, it's also removing some of the other barriers for our Boston resident students. That's access to late bus, the work that Mr. Martin's been doing to create community partnerships between Reading residents and Boston residents, some of the work that we've been doing to provide after-school tutoring to our Boston residents, also some of the work that we've been doing to pair a lot of our Boston resident students with after-school activities. I will put some more examples again in the Google folder, but I wanted to highlight we believe that this is a key part of us in our district, and embodying high expectations is high expectations for all, and that includes our Boston resident students. We're excited about our innovative high school pathways launching this year, dual enrollment for the first time at Reading Memorial High School. Again, and that's just, we feel like the first part for us in designing, moving forward, more innovative pathways around continuing dual enrollment and also vocational hands-on things like that. And then I'd like to thank the committee too. Something I think is really encouraging for us around is finally having a path for universal full-day kindergarten. Again, I can't claim credit for us designing that path. I think it's us collaboratively working to try to get to be determined as a group to say this is a problem we've tried to solve for a long time. We need to put our heads together and find out a way to do that. And now having a path, albeit with some barriers and challenges ahead, but a path to be able to get forward to be able to move this, create access for all in our community. And we feel that these are just, again, a few examples of ways that we think our community has, or our team has embodied a commitment to high standards throughout the year. 2A, environment. It's hard to speak about this without speaking about COVID. You see the descriptor says, develops and executes effective plans, procedures, routines, and operational systems to address a full range of safety, health, emotional, social, emotional needs. It's really hard this year to, I think, describe the level of difficulty that our schools face in terms of the health needs. I'd like to give a shout out to Mary Juliana, I think, who's just been masterful in helping us to navigate all the challenges in front of us this year. But when we think about COVID-19 responses, that we think about, vaccination clinics, constantly responding testing protocols. So whether that's including, shifting from all the work in the beginning of the year with test and stay, which feels like forever ago, to now then expanding to pool testing, knowing when to pull back and take pool testing back, being responsive to the needs of our nurses, the work of getting the test kit distribution out to our staff before break, or actually after break, to come back to school, the work of the test kit distribution to get our test kits in the hands of our students and staff. We feel that this year has been constantly just a shuffling and adjustment and shifting of protocols, responses, and systems. Unfortunately, we now know, after we feel like we were in a better place for several weeks, right? We're now also knowing that we're seeing an increase in numbers too. So this is not work that we feel like is over, right? This is work that's continually to evolve on a day-to-day basis. There is a part on there around, I'll get to the budget, around some of the things we were able to add this year, but you do see the safety, health, emotional, and social emotional needs. We feel this year in our budget, we were really able to reflect some of those needs by putting in school counselors at each one of our schools, beefing up our school counseling ratios in FTE at our secondary level, and also adding that full-time nurse that'll allow Mary to have district-wide oversight. Also, again, like to thank the committee for approving the district-wide float nurse, which, Mary pieced together through sub-nurses throughout the year, and then recently hired a full-time float nurse who now has been with many of our nurses, needing to take some time, being out of the building with various, needs, issues, sicknesses, has been instrumental in filling in that space. So again, while that response I have been a part of and a supporter and a collaborator, that also has been driven by Mary and many others. I'd also like to share too, one of the major pieces for us too was navigating what we think were some of the challenging issues relating to vaccinations, masking, and while we as a committee may not always agree on what the best path forward is, hopefully the committee believes that we're able to approach those issues collaboratively, approach those issues by listening, and be able to bring people together as we navigated some of those challenging issues. And another piece here, which we spoke about tonight, Killam Elementary School and MSBA. I would like to, again, while a lot of this is falling on us now, I'd also like to, as I have, thank Dr. Doherty, Gail Dow, Joe Huggins for all of their work previously in kind of getting us to this point. Again, this involves the town manager, select board, a lot of other people involved in this, but I think a key part of my role over the past couple of months has also been to help us move this process forward, getting us in the eligibility period, and now getting us to a path forward. Shifting to HR, management and development, implementing a cohesive approach to recruiting, hiring, induction, development, and career growth that promotes high quality and effective practice. I think one of the best things that we've done this year is position Michelle Roach and her team to lead. As you know, we've seen some really exciting developments in the HR world. Some of the things that have been important for us this year is what are ways that we reduce barriers to entry for staff. So we've looked at job descriptions, as you know, to reduce, better reflect who we are as a district and also to more effectively recruit candidates. We have tried to streamline hiring processes by reducing application questions. We have also expanded recruiting efforts, so our team was over at multiple recruiting fairs over the past couple of weekends, posting in different places. Some of the impact of that thus far has been, we've seen an increase in the number of candidates in various roles. I'll share some data with that in our Google folder. We've spoken a lot about the increase in subpool. And we also like to share too that we think that these processes that we've led have been processes that include multiple stakeholders, listen to community voice, and are fair and collaborative processes, like the Wood End search process, principal search process for Sean, who I know was involved, the teachers at Wood End. I'll share some feedback for those who were involved, generally feel that it was a really positive, collaborative, and inclusive process that also ultimately ended with the hiring of someone who we're really excited about for the future. Communication, engaged in two-way, regular, culturally proficient communication with families and community stakeholders about student learning and performance. I think that the key word for us in there is two-way. So we'll start with one thing that we feel is one way. That's just getting information out in a weekly district communication. I have tried this year to listen to what the community feels like they want from district-level communication. Initially, the feedback that I heard was that our school principals do a really good job of keeping our school communities involved in what's happening at the school level. It is important in the district communications that we generate some momentum, enthusiasm, and excitement about different things happening across the district. So trying to do that in both video and written form to be able to keep the community, again, multiple modes of access. Also, we feel that some of our work that we lead reflects high quality communication through the budget process, and outcomes is one example. The budget process was really a reflection of listening, from us listening to our students, us listening to our staff, us listening to our families about what we need in our community. Therefore, as we move through the budget season, we feel that generally the school committee, our principals, our staff, and our families feel like they were heard, they were listened to, and that what they felt were needs in our communities were reflected in the budget. What's not explicitly listed here is that something that we feel is really important is that we are good listeners. And I think that the feed that a lot of our team members get a lot is that we like to listen to the feedback of multiple people, and people feel like we're hearing them. So while there might not be a way that we can quantify that here, we hopefully see that that's reflected as we start to, again, put together forward-facing presentations, outcomes, and documents like the budget process and presentation.
Tom, on this front, you have a lot of data from all of your school visits.
I do.
That is two-way. It's coming back to you.
Yep.
So you might want to think about including some of that as part of this, since it wasn't specifically highlighted there.
Perfect. And that's a good point too, is that I will, as I put information in the Google Drive that I'm speaking, or the Google folder I'm sharing tonight, if there's other things tonight that you would like me to put in, please let me know, and I will make sure to find that data as well. Shifting into the last bullet, shared vision successfully and continually engages all stakeholders in the creation of a shared educational vision in which every student is prepared to succeed in a post-secondary education and become a responsible citizen and global contributor. Right? I think this is a really tough ask in a polarized world, right? And there was, as you know, a lot of differences in opinions around how and what we should do to improve. I am very excited about the process ahead of creating a district strategic plan to outline exactly where we're going, because I think the majority of the community will get behind where we need to go. So that speaks to that second bullet of the district improvement plan revision process, which we've started earlier in the year to say that we need everyone's views in here. So hopefully now people see when they read our district report of entry findings, they see their voice and their ideas and their perspectives listed in there. Something I'd like to share, again, was a point of pride, I think, for us, and a starting point for our work ahead was the joint equity statement between the school committee, the district leadership team, and the RTA executive board. I think one of the first things I heard from the community, and I think a couple committee members who I see right now who shared, one of the first things we need to do is come up with a shared definition of equity. Right? And I was really encouraged that in some of our first opportunities to collaborate with those stakeholder groups that we were able to do that. Now the feedback that I continue to hear is we need to make sure that that's front and center on everything we do. That should be on our website. That should be at some of our marketing campaigns. And also that needs to be explicitly linked in our district strategic plan. So I think there's an opportunity, again, to figure out, we've come up with this, we've created a shared understanding of what we mean by this. Now how do we live this out? Which again, I think is coming as part of this district improvement plan revision process. So overall, I wanted to speak about some of the things that we think stuck out within each of those indicators. A lot of these span across multiple indicators. I will put a lot of these documents that I shared here tonight in the Google folder for the committee, but I'd also like to hear tonight what are some of the things that the committee would like to see in that folder, or would like me to speak about in a written reflection that would help them as they put together the evaluation.
Anybody want to start? Sean?
Sure. I think detail on the HR management and development piece is important, particularly what you didn't allude to there, but we've talked about, and I think is in a district goal, is around recruitment and retention of diverse staff members as well. So anything that we can point to that sort of talks about, activity and progress in that space, I think would be helpful. And then I had another one, but I lost it. I'll come back to it.
I'll just build on my previous question or comment. Anything that you all can put together with regards to the strategy action steps that you put out as part of the district improvement plan that fits into both 1 and 2 of your greater goals. Not just the focus indicators, but the goals as well. It'd be good to have some of these things tied back to those too. I know that a lot of them we've already heard from, but it's always good to have it coalesced into one place to make it easy for the review process. I know Dr. Stice has talked a lot about system updates from a procedure and policy perspective and whatnot. How far have we made it in those regards? Some of the stuff that Sean just mentioned from a hiring and recruiting perspective, we already asked about the portrait of graduate stuff, but then really just trying to tie back how much of this. So it's a little bit of a precursor because you have that planning for the update that's happening there, but it's also the retrospective of how far have we gone. You've talked about that's already something you're in process of doing. So however much you have to show how far you've come would be great to see.
Tom, can we get a copy of this too?
Sure.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
Yeah. And technically we should update this and the literacy one in the packet as well and put out the final packet as materials for the meeting today. Carla?
And Tom, in addition to, in reference to the career growth for principals, that, I feel like I haven't heard a lot about it, but it intrigues me. So if you have anything, I mean, nothing specific, but just like overall strategies and things like that would be great.
You mean around goal 4?
Just, well, in terms.
It does tie to goal 4, but yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of to be,
To be.
The focus area.
yeah, the focus area with the principals.
It's a cross-correlation one.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
I mean, I think there as well, I mean, it talks about induction. And I know that, you know, Jen and Sarah did a huge amount of work for the induction
did.
program in August. I know you've already talked about even improving that further coming this August, so any information that they can share about that would probably tie back to that as well,
Right.
right?
That's one of those too, that's been, I've tried to put on ones that I also have been like closely involved in throughout the year. Induction, you know, it's been very heavy lift by Jen and Sarah, so not really as much involvement from me in leading that work.
That's fair.
But principals, yes, that, the one, your point's absolutely.
I remembered my other one.
Go ahead.
So Carla, thank you for bringing that up because it reminded me of my other one. I don't know how far you can go on this, and there's some sensitivity there, but I'd be curious to know about sort of the linkage. So we have the data-informed decision-making as a focus indicator. How you use data in doing the assessments and the formative assessments for your directs. How did that play into that process? I think is the other angle here. You talked about it sort of in the global context of peeling apart the MCAS results to understand the subpopulations and the literacy challenges and so forth. But I'd love to hear, again, you can't be terribly specific because it's individual personnel type issues, but generally how data was used in that process as well.
I'll build on the data question there as well. If there's, and we've talked a little bit about being data poor at times, but whatever has been put in place this year to help bridge that data poor gap, from an analysis of some of the data that's there, from a gathering of the data that's there, you know, from a training or PD in terms of understanding what the early bird says or what the, you know, Acadians data says or anything else like that that shows us actually using the data we're gathering and to inform instruction appropriately. That would be, if there's anything there that we could tie in. Okay, I think we've expired the committee a little bit on this one, so.
Right.
Anything else? Chuck, go ahead.
So, again, I always say this, I like to kind of process things, so you'll look, if we send you additional information by an email, or if I call you, this isn't our final.
No, this was the introduction too, and I also wanted to hear from you all, what are some of the pieces that you thought were most important for me to include? So now I have some of the documents ready, I'll start to put them in a folder, and I'll just keep uploading that as I hear from you, other additional requests. So
We probably should snap a chalk line and say, we need to
Yeah, I get it,
Right, I mean,
but
we all have to write our reviews too. It doesn't have to be tonight, but, you know, I don't know, maybe in the next 48 hours or something. Just to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have another meeting with principals on Friday where we're debriefing sort of a lot of the work this year from the goals. So I think if we could have till Friday, that would be ideal to get everything up there. And after that, we can cut it, if that makes sense. I can get some things up before that, but.
As long as we have something to start working with, then we can snap the chalk at Friday, to use Sean's.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the way I roll
It's a
I
thing.
wouldn't.
Okay, good. Just writing snap the chalk.
Snap chalk by Friday.
We should move the policy to the
I
next
think we
meeting.
are. Yep. Oh, no, we're not moving to the next meeting. We're not moving it to the next meeting because we need to get it to Kevin so he can include it in the RMHS, handbook.
You're just not allowed to make any changes.
There are a couple of small changes coming.
Worry about
Were we good with? We're good.
You're far right.
Over to the right.
All right, so we will now move to our last item on the agenda, and that is, which should have been E2, but it's E12. Policy JICH, procedure JICHR, update, review, and approval. And Scott, we'll need to switch over the display again to me, if you don't mind. And before we get started, I'm going to ask Aaron to provide us an update and status of, how we got here, all the different feedback loops you pulled in, and then we can, work our way from there.
Okay. I'm going to summarize, slightly higher level overview. This one's been a marathon, not a sprint. So the policy subcommittee began looking at policy JICH, alcohol, tobacco/nicotine, and drug use by students prohibited, and JICHR, Reading Public Schools chemical health procedures for students, back in September. It had been flagged for us because there were differences between the school committee policy and what was in the RMHS handbook. Upon consulting with counsel, Colleen Shea, we learned that the current policy does not comply with current student discipline laws. So a lot of the proposed changes were related to that. And also that MIAA rules had changed. The current iteration of our policy had a lot of the MIAA stuff spelled out verbatim. She gave us a lot of suggestions, revisions, which we then reviewed at another September meeting. We then sent the revised policy to Erica McNamara with the coalition. Erica met with Tom, also Tom Zaya, Kevin Tracy in early November to discuss. She then provided us with further suggestions and revisions. Also noted that technically tobacco nicotine violations fall under the Board of Health, but was clear to say that the Board of Health doesn't interfere with school committee policy. Also in November, there was some more back and forth with counsel, with Erica McNamara. In December, Erica, Tom Milichewski, Tom Zaya, and Kevin met again to discuss the current iteration of the policy at that time. Due to various issues and time constraints, we received that feedback in March. During that time, Kevin Tracy also chimed in that the high school council was looking at policies in the handbook but didn't have further changes. Policy subcommittee met again on April 1st to review everything we had to date. We made some additional edits, and that's the version that is before you tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a version. I have saved the version that this policy subcommittee sent to us. I accepted all changes, and it's currently marked as, in this version, SC clean, because I'm expecting there might be a few minor changes to what's here, even if only for formatting, although I know that there's a few references that need to be added as well as we are working through it. So you don't see any of the changes from a change tracking perspective. If anybody wants me to pull that up, I can. I have it as well. But this is the version that would read as it is without any changes that we make to any formatting. Or other changes as necessary. So I would, we'll start here and see if there's any other changes people want to make, if there's anything they found from substance. And then we can make some minor cleanups from a format perspective as well. Sean?
Really, maybe just a question for the folks on the policy subcommittee. I certainly understand most of the changes were driven by consistency with the handbook, consistency with state law, on advice of counsel, loads of legal language, which makes it clear that we didn't write a lot of it, from scratch. Is there anything in here that was, sort of a judgment call that merits discussion versus being driven by consistency with other documents and other laws and so forth?
That's a good question. Not really. Most of it, was meant to reflect current practice. So there were some changes in the language, particularly around discipline and how discipline tends to be handled now. And, you know, I think the other one that was a little debatable was the MIAA. You know, we struck a lot of language, but felt like we covered it by, you know, providing reference to MIAA rather than every year having to revisit it and say, what's the current MIAA language? Now we have to update the policy again. But most of the changes fell under what, you know, what you described. Yeah.
I think with regard to the penalties, we, in, I think, all cases, substituted or changed the will to shall, so it's not as.
Or may.
Or may.
It says may, yeah.
And I think that opened a lot of good conversations when, especially when we involved, I can speak for when I was with Erica McNamara, Tom Zaya, Kevin Tracy, outlining potential scenarios of if it were to be more prescriptive, this is how it could help or hurt us in this scenario, versus if a little bit more open-ended, and then we actually played out a lot of different scenarios. So I think ultimately landing on the less prescriptive language in a lot of these scenarios to kind of give more flexibility depending on the context we felt was important. And I just want to say, too, having Erica at the table was really, really important during all these conversations. She was invaluable, her perspective.
Yeah, she would have been involved at the first, when this first was put in place.
Yeah, so I guess there was some conversation among us by using the may, you know, were we opening it up for families to push back on the, you know, but we really felt like we wanted to empower the administration to respond how they feel they need to respond, but that not all situations should have a universal response, and that it should really more be tailored to the student and the, you know, the unique situation. So we felt comfortable with the may language in that regard.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? From a substance perspective? No? All right, so just a couple of things, just because this misalignment is kind of what started this whole process in the first place. Yeah, there are different dates across the documents in the different documents that we have. I don't presume to know for sure that every single one of the dates that is recorded is actually a review of the policy versus the procedure. But in the handbook, we have certain dates for the policy and then dates for the procedure. And in our stuff, we have certain dates for the policy and dates for the procedure. I would like to propose that we just align the policy and the procedure to have all of those dates for clarity. So we say 2012, 2016, 2018, and 2022, because it has gone through multiple iterations, and have that consistent across both the policy and procedure. I could imagine we would update a procedure without a policy update, for sure. But I think it's inconsistent as you look at the different documents that we have available to us. And it's not clear to me, and without a real historian to say exactly what happened, that is in fact what happened. So our policy, for example, has 2007 and 2018. And then you go to the handbook and it has 2007, 2012, 2016. It doesn't even have 2018 on it, right? So I'd like us just to acknowledge that, you know, we revised and accepted in alignment with all of the dates that are in each of the documents, essentially, and just add that in. So it says 2007, 2012, 2016, 2018, and then today, which would be 2022, appropriately. So I don't need to make those now necessarily. I think we can do it as amended, and I'll take notes because there's a lot of them in this form as we go through that. That's one change I'd like us to see. The second change, and went back and forth a little bit with legal counsel on this as well, just to get a clarity on it, is that we have, going over here, we have different references in the different documents as well, from a legal ref perspective. And to me, it seems odd, and, after talking with Colleen and she's seeing my point, she agreed that the legal references should align between the procedure and the policy as well. In particular, the procedure refers to, Town of Reading documentation and Board of Health documentation that the policy does not. That's there, and so I'd like just to make sure the legal references are in alignment between the policy and the procedure as well from a cleanliness perspective. Those are minor. I think those are form over substance, for lack of a better way to put it. But at least it lines up the clarity of what we're referring to appropriately.
So can I ask?
Go ahead.
Did Colby compare notes with Colleen? Because that's who we've been working with.
Colby has been out. Colleen was the one who responded.
Oh, okay, so you said Colby, so
Yeah.
that's why.
I said I thought I said legal counsel.
You said Colby.
Okay, so I started saying Cole, then I wanted to stop, and so maybe I finished it, but.
I think the town references came up because they're specifically cited in the procedures, but not
Is that-
policy. I mean, that's why they're,
So, I mean, if there's a reason, as a citing perspective, I could get behind that if that's the case. It was, again, initially in both the policy and the procedure, if we look at the history of it, I believe. And so it was like, why did we take it off? And if the reason we took it off was because of that, no, it's not. I apologize, I'm wrong. So that's a
yeah, no,
correction.
we had to change them because they changed.
Yep.
And that was something that Colleen caught for us. But, yeah, it had, the Town of Reading article, that had to do with the JICHR, but not JICH.
Okay, so here's where my confusion was. The legal reference in the handbook has that in it.
Okay.
The legal reference in our policy did not have those references in it, in the policy in the handbook. So this is one of the reasons why we need to have the handbook, not actually have the policies in it, actually a reference to it, because the legal reference in the policy in the handbook has these Town of Reading article lines in them, which probably means it was copied wrong into the handbook, if our policy did not have them in there. So I'm okay, just say we'll leave that in the procedure instead. Just make sure it's clear in that regard. And it's in there twice, actually. It's kind of a mess in the handbook. The last ones are really just minor niggly ones that I had, which was spacing, cleaning up spacing. This is because we removed a reference, but we didn't get the space out. We have an extra period in here in this identifying student related stuff. We have some kind of different textual lines, like this is, that's what it is. It was ripped out of the PDF to make a Word doc, so actually making it a text line that it shows up properly would be cleaning that up as well.
Sometimes trying to edit these documents just threw off all the formatting, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we're gonna deal with that later. So.
Yeah, and then cleaning up spacing here, and any commas that should be added would be like, comma would be there and stuff like that, or whatever the case may be, to make it the correction.
Consistent, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those were the other ones I had, just, again, I'm pedantic when it comes to some of these things. Anything else, anybody else? Dr. Coram, I'm sure there's something I missed.
Jeffrey Coram, Ridge Road. If you're going to be pedantic, I wonder if you want to fix the parallelism in the 5 bullets. 3 of them start with to, and 2 of them don't start with to maintain.
I noticed that myself. Oh, this
Motion to adjourn.
Denied. This was another one I wanted to fix as well. Anything else anybody else had? All right, so we'll take a motion then, if it's as amended, Sean, if you
Yes.
don't mind.
Move to approve the updates to policy JICH and procedure JICH-R, excuse me, as amended in accordance with policy BGB, notice having been given on May 2nd, 2022.
Do I have a second? Who said it?
Chuck.
Chuck? I thought I heard Sarah too, but okay, we'll go with Chuck. Hand in the air. All right, any further discussion?
Thank you all for the work on this one,
Agreed. This was a heavy lift.
and all the others that were involved. Are
Yes.
here to thank in person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. All right, all in favor? All opposed? And it passes. All right, so I will, just as I finish cleaning this up as well, I'll send it out so everybody sees the final version that we just agreed to, but didn't have all encompassed necessarily. And then we'll get it to our new executive assistant for inclusion in the packet, in the policy manual officially, and to Mr. Tracy for inclusion in the handbook officially.
So you brought up is he, what is this have? Is he working on the handbook for next year? Is that, okay.
Yeah, that's on our agenda for either the 9th or the 16th, is the review of the handbook. This is one of the big things that is.
We got to do a better job with that.
Agreed. Although it's his first year, so there's a little bit of a.
No, that wasn't reflective. I'm just thinking over the last few years.
Right, exactly. Okay. That's the conclusion of business this evening. Is there any further motions?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion by Aaron. Do we have a second? Seconded by Sarah. All in favor? All opposed? And it carries. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Tom, did